Who's friends with all the night dreamers, talking to you at night. Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not in sight. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's talk show radio, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Dreamers talk show will fix your despair. If you want to talk conspiracies, Night Dreamers is for you. Top secret case, alien space, it's Gary with the news. Tune in on the radio, don't let Big Brother know. They're listening to everything, even Gary's late night show. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Show Dreamers talk show will fix your despair, because Gary's talking to you at night.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with The Strange News. New claims suggest that Benito Mussolini dealt with a UFO problem before World War II began. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, the home of Night Dreams Talk Radio, with Gary Anderson, syndicated worldwide. Paranormal Talk Radio, like you remember.
Well, here it is. It's a Friday already. I hope everybody's having a great week. It's going to be coming up, and a great weekend. I'll tell you that. I'm going to be, working in our bathroom. We are in the process of putting a complete new shower in. And when you do that and you tear your old one out, oh boy, you find out now you need a new floor, a subfloor, and then a new toilet and this and that. And I'll tell you what, you had a budget of a couple $1,000s and it goes way above it. There goes my new camera I had planned. Anyway, JC, how about you? What have you been up to?
Really looking forward to tonight's show and trying to stay warm here in the Midwest because it's been cold, as you know, 24 degrees.
Well, I warned you. You didn't believe me. About a week ago, I told you the whole country is going to start chilling out, even where we're at right now. You know, it is really, really getting chilly. And I tell you what, I'm not ready for it.
No, I'm not. I bet your goldfish in that pond aren't either if they're not froze already.
Well, you know what? For the last 4 years, it hasn't even froze.
I know, that's weird. It used to freeze and now they don't. And then didn't they come back to life when it thawed out?
Yeah, I can't figure that out. I got to Google it and find out why. But that's interesting. I remember when the pond would be frozen for 2 months solid, and these fish would be like an ice cube. And then, it started thawing out, and the next thing I know, they're swimming again.
Yeah, and that whole frozen pond thing, that's how a couple ponds ended up missing. When the geese would land and it freezes, and then they flew off and took the pond with them or something like that.
Yeah, well, you know what I hate is owls. We got a lot of owls.
Oh, yeah.
And they love fish.
I'm surprised they haven't got your goldfish because they
have.
They have?
Yeah,
okay.
This spring we had 30 goldfish. We're down to 3.
Oh, boy, that's a whole buffet for them right there. Wow.
Yeah, we even put a netting on it and it figured out smart enough to figure out how to do it. And if it isn't that, then the raccoons and possums and all that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That poor goldfish swimming for their lives.
Yeah, and it's a good size. You know what? My kids used to actually swim in it
when
they were young, many years ago.
Yeah, right.
That's one thing I wouldn't want to. Goldfish, no. That's another thing. We got 100-gallon in our main front room aquarium filled with 3 goldfish and one of the bottom sucker fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
They started out at about a ½ inch. They're 13 inches long already.
Wow. How old are they?
I would say about 15 years.
Yeah. Fish keep growing the older they get. It just depends how big the water is that they're in, is how the size of them.
Well, I can't go any bigger than the tank we have. But it started out with a 10-gallon tank, And then it went to a 20, then it went to a 30, then it went to a 50, a 75. Now we're at 100. And I'll tell you what they do. They swim there and then they swim back. They can't really do anything. And I don't want to put them out in the pond because, they're family.
Well, yeah, you put them out there, they probably won't last very long with all the predators.
No, and on top of it, when I'm out there watching TV, okay, like the Howling and all that, they're sitting, the three of them, they're just staring at me.
They're probably talking about you, like, look at that
Probably,
guy.
they say, oh, that's that talk show host that sucks. Well, we got a great show, and let's do this real quick, and then we're going to be back with our special guest. We're going to talk about her books, and then we're going to talk about her talk show. We're going to talk about all these movies and horror movies and stuff like The Hills Have Eyes and all these other ones she's appeared in. So it's going to be interesting here tonight on Night Dreams. And don't forget, our second guest tonight is Marc. We're going to talk about that asteroid. It might be coming close to Earth. Which, how about the ones we don't find out about they go by. And then we got an hour's open line. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about, like the worst Christmas gift you ever got. And what is your whole motive for the year 2024 with the new year? So we'll find all that out, and you can call in and tell us that. So let's do this. We'll be right back.
Internationally known as an Emmy-nominated actress with 5 series and over 295 film and TV credits, Dee Wallace is also a best-selling author and a multinationally respected authority on the art of self-creation for over 30 years, having authored 5 books on the subject of self-creation: Conscious Creation, The Big E, Bright Light, Getting Stuff, and Wake Up Now. Born and BuppaLaPaloo, a children's book, are her 6th and 7th offerings, all of which are subjects she's available to discuss. As a much sought-after speaker, Dee has spoken at numerous national and international venues and outlets, including TED Talks, the Love and Harmony Forum in Japan, the Dillon Lecture Series, Unity Temple, the Kansas Film Commission, and has been asked to speak in China, New Zealand, Amsterdam, Australia, England, and all across the United States and Canada. Dee has appeared on every major news and talk show and has been featured on True Hollywood Stories and Oprah. Dee continues to conduct her weekly call-in radio show with over 500 episodes, monthly webinars, and private sessions worldwide. Like the title character in the #1 all-time hit film that she stars in, she teaches us how to truly get back home.
Well, Dee, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Well, I'm pretty awesome. I'm going to try and live up to that great intro.
Yeah, my voiceover guy does really good work. I tell you that.
Yeah, he has a great voice, too.
Yeah, I tried to buy his voice and he wouldn't sell it to me.
You tell him he has a very sexy voice.
Well, I don't want to tell him that. I'll have JC. He might think I'm strange. But so, what's your plans? Because we're in a new year. What's your new plans for 2024?
Keep creating, baby. As long as I'm creating, I'm happy.
Well,
creating health, creating money, creating serving people that I love, empowering people, doing great acting roles. Yeah, it's all creation,
Do you have any psychic ability?
I'm a clairaudient channel, which is not necessarily the same as a psychic. I don't tell fortunes, but I do tell and what's in your way of creating that possibility in your life.
So you could manifest, and improve your life.
Absolutely. That's what I teach. I teach people to take responsibility for the creation of their own life. And most of us are really not ever taught to do that. We're taught that somebody or something does that there is fate in the world that have our lives planned out. I know that not to be true. I've changed my fate so many times in my life. Best example is my daughter. Every specialist that I saw told me I would never have a baby. I said, thank you very much for sharing, but God and I have a different plan. And she's 35 now and just gave me my first grandson. So, you know, it goes back to that great quote from the good book. As you believe, it's delivered to you. So there's nothing predestined. And the greatest sins of the fathers are the limitations in our own power that are passed down to us.
Wow. A question I have. How does it feel to be a grandmother?
Awesome. It feels absolutely awesome. And that little sucker is so happy and so smart. You say grandson, and I just break out in this huge smile. He is just such a sense of joy in all of our lives.
How old is he?
He's 4.5 months now.
When he gets older, I bet you're going to spoil him, aren't you?
I'm already spoiling him. I think that's the role of a grandparent, don't you?
Oh, I do. You know, I remember my grandmother. She put up with more stuff that I did than my parents would ever do. And she always would put her arms around me and say, that's okay. You'll learn from the next time of experience.
Yeah. Yeah, we're very understanding, for sure.
Of course, you know why? Because when they get tired of you, you can say, okay, now it's time to go home.
Yeah, that's what I hear. But, you know, I find myself saying, it's okay, honey, why don't you go out? I'll come over and take care of him.
But I hated. I mean, I had 8 kids. We're down to 6. 2 of them passed. But you know what I used to do is changing diapers. I just, you know, I didn't mind so much when they were my kids, but my grandkids, you know, what can I say?
Well, that's one of the things that you are able to always hand them back for.
Yeah,
right?
Hey, it's time for you to take care of this. No more golden showers for me.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. TMI, but I'll never forget the first time my little brother was 7 years younger than me, and my mom brought him home, and I said, I'll change his diaper, Mom, right? And had not been trained in it, and the first time I changed him, shot right into my mouth.
I'm sorry, that's what happened to me. I think it happens to everybody.
It happens to a lot of people. And so now I'm very careful to keep that little thing covered up until I get the next diaper out and ready.
They're dangerous too, I tell you that. Well, what got you into writing all these books, Dee?
Well, you know, when you bring in information and it changes your life and your life becomes happier and more powerful and more wealthy and healthier, you have to share it. I feel like I had to share it. And that's why I wrote the books. And my latest book, Born, Giving Birth to a New You, is literally the formula for creating and manifesting everything in your life. And it's so easy to read. You know, when I started channeling, I said to the channel, why me? I'm this little girl from Kansas. Why me? And the channel said, because you're able to say it in a way that everybody can understand it. And absolutely, my new book, Born, is so easy to read, and yet it is everything you need to know to create money, health and wellness, relationships, success, everything. Once you know how to create, you know how to create anything.
How long did it take you to write this book, Dee?
I wrote Born in less than 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
it kind of wrote itself, really.
Can you tell us a little bit about the book? I mean, about, let's say, relationships or anything like that?
Well, one of the big things to understand is energy needs direction. And we direct energy with our thoughts, our feelings, and our beliefs. Mostly unconsciously. When I go out to speak, I'll have somebody come up on stage and I'll say, okay, what do you want to create? Well, I don't want to have to worry about money so much. Okay, what do you want to create? Well, I don't want to stress over money. I'm not kidding. This can go on for 20 minutes until they get so pissed off at me. They go, God, I want more money. And I said, first time in 20 minutes, you've told me what you want. We are so trained to say what we don't want. And the beauty of my work is it combines spirituality, some religion, and a lot of brain science, which, by the way, are all saying the same thing. For example, in the good book, it says, think only on these things. Peace, love, joy, right? Brain science says, whatever you think about, you create more of in your life. Which is why in the good book, they said, think only on the positive things, right? So I just cover in the book our power over creation. Nobody can think a thought for us, feel a feeling for us, or hold a belief for us that we don't want. That makes us the people of free will that direct the energy of what we want in our lives. And once you get that concept, you start moving into your power.
Well, again, somebody who's negative, maybe going through depression, or maybe they had a downturn or a divorce, or their loved one died, and they're in a deep, depression, then wouldn't they be then manifesting negative thoughts, negative things?
Well, what a great question that is. And actually, the answer is yes. It is a positive thing to experience the grief and the sadness, and it's a negative thing to allow yourself to stay in it. So, a lot of people, when I go out and yeah, sure, Dee, you're a famous actress and you make a lot of money and blah. Okay, so my story is I was raised in a very, very poor family. My father was a severe alcoholic from the time I was about 6 on. He berated my mother pretty much nightly. He ended up shooting himself in the head and committing suicide. 3 years ago, my younger brother did the same thing.
Oh, wow.
So, I could say, yeah, I want to be happy and I want to be positive, but look at all this stuff that's happened to me. Or I can say, that's what happened to me. What do I do with it now? And I chose to move back into love, to be positive, to embrace the things that I love to do, and to teach other people how to do that. Because I can tell you, you will never create the things in your life that you want while you hold on to unforgiveness, anger, hate, victimness. You will simply continue to create those experiences in your life. Why? Because every thought and feeling we have has an electrical impulse. They measure our hearts with electrocardiograms, our brains with electroencephalograms. Every thought and feeling we have shoots out an electrical impulse into the universe, which is, guess what, electromagnetic. So whatever we send out into the universe without judgment matches it. That's its job. It matches it without judgment and sends that experience back to us as the reality of our lives. So if you want to create a different life, you have got to take the responsibility of shifting yourself into the choice of love and joy and peace. And your life changes.
I think too, because if somebody's really negative about life, then, you know, even if the opportunity to become rich or find a new mate or get that new car will never happen.
No, because you're saying I'm a victim. And the universe is going, okay, I have no judgment. I'll create more victimness for you.
Very interesting. When did this start coming to you? How old are you when this started coming to you, these thoughts?
Well, you know, when I was a little girl, I channeled, which all kids do. Parents will call it, oh, she has an imaginary friend, isn't that cute? They're actually channeling information. So, for example, I woke up one night. I was very close to my paternal grandmother, who pretty much raised me because my mom had to work all the time. And one night around 3 a.m. I woke up and I went and woke my mom up and I said, Mommy, something's the matter at Grandma's house. And God loved my mom. She got up and called and Grandma didn't answer. So we got in the car and we drove over there. And the cat had gotten up and turned on all the burners in the house.
Oh, wow.
Now, Grandma was okay. Whether she would have been okay in the morning, who knows? But I used to get information like that. My father, after his suicide, visited me. I know this sounds like one of my horror films, but as a light, and it moved out of the mirror, and I heard, not the way I hear you, but I heard, it's not your fault, Dee Dee. I'm okay. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Your job is to go on and be happy and live a happy life. And then the light went back to the mirror and disappeared. So then, cut to many years later, I met my husband, Christopher Stone, and he was very involved in this philosophy called conceptology, which was way before The Secret and all that stuff. And we would go down to Anaheim once or twice a month and study with this man who taught conceptology, which was really, you are the creator of your life and you have the choice to think the thoughts and feel the feelings that create what you want. And then cut to my husband dying, and I dropped to my knees and said, I don't want to be pissed off. I don't want to be a victim. I want a way we can heal ourselves. Now, in the good book, you see, it says, ask and ye receive. That was asking. I want a way we can all heal ourselves. And within seconds, I got the first message, which was use the light within you to heal yourself.
Interesting. Now,
I've kind of been studying that ever since.
Now, we need to take about a 3-minute break or 3.5-minute break. And we come back. I want to talk to you about talk radio. You have a talk show, which you
do.
And you know, I want to find out about that. So stay tuned, everybody. We're going to be back with Dee Wallace right after this. So don't go anywhere. Get that log in the fireplace, prop up your feet on that easy chair, pour yourself some hot chocolate or cocoa, and let's go for a real ride here tonight on Night Dreams.
Biggest names, the brightest stars on the red carpet and on the air with Gary Anderson. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, when it comes to the big get, Gary's got him. Like voiceover artist Jim Meskimen. Is his mom really Mrs. C on Happy Days? Allison Arngrim from Little House on the Prairie. Oh, speaking of Little House, Gary's got Dean Butler from the show talking about his book, Prairie Man, My Little House Life and Beyond. Here's much more. Yeah, there is. Check this out. Loretta Swit, Hot Lips Houlihan from MASH. So listen to Gary Anderson, because you never know who's gonna show. That's why we do these promos, right? Gary Anderson, where the stars come out to play. Tune in early, tune in often, right here on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the strange news. Humans may have eaten giant snails 170,000 years ago. Scientists have discovered the earliest evidence of humans eating giant snails, according to a new paper published in the journal Quaternary Science Reviews. In a southern African cave, paleontologists uncovered pieces of shells from large land snails that date from 70,000 to 170,000 years ago. From past research, scientists had evidence of humans eating snails around 49,000 years ago in Africa, and about a poultry, by comparison, 36,000 years ago in Europe. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. Deep in the Amazon jungle, one man.
Hi, I'm Stan Gordon. Check out the Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary the Big Guy.
Yeah, let me finish. One man.
Hi, I'm Marc Muncy. Check out Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary the Big Guy.
Yeah, do you mind? One man, naked and afraid.
I'm losing my mind.
You and me both, sister. One man, Gary the Big Guy. No boats, no lights, no motor cars, not a single luxury.
Hey, any more and you'll have to pay a royalty.
Okay, that's it. Hit it! From the summer vacation studios deep in the Amazon jungle, from that tree right there. See at the top, he's swinging.
I'm losing my mind.
Twice? All right. Coming to you live, for now, on Night Dreams Talk Radio, naked and afraid, Gary the Big Guy Anderson.
And that's me. And I actually put on clothes tonight because we have Dee Wallace on. I didn't want to be naked and I didn't want to be afraid and I didn't want her to be uncomfortable. Dee, we are back.
Honey, I'm a movie star. I don't get uncomfortable.
Well, I'm a talk show host, and that's why I am a talk show host. Because, well, I won't go into it. But anyway, you do a talk show too.
I do. Actually, it's not a talk show. It's a call-in show where people can call in for free and ask anything from the channel, any guidance that they need or want.
Interesting. How's that? How long you been doing that for?
Oh my gosh, I think I'm close to my 800th show. Years and years and years I've been doing this. I love it. It helps so many people. And I must say my channel is beyond accurate.
Wow. And what got you into it? Did somebody come up to you and say, "Hey, you need to do this," or did you manifest it in on your own?
Well, it started with my story when my husband died, and soon after that, I started an acting studio, and I would be sitting down watching a couple of actors begin to act, and I would receive messages, and it was a little weird at first. Especially, we didn't know quite what was going on, but I would pick up information about, well, for example, I would always allow 6 auditors, and at the end of a class, 3 people would come up to me and go, "Oh my God, I've got to study with you. I'll do anything. I've got to study with you." And the other 3 would go, "Hey, it was real nice, thanks." And they were out the door. Because, I mean, really kind of scarily accurate things would come through when they were 1-2 lines into the scene. And I remember this one scene. I stopped the actor and I said, "How many times have you been engaged?" And I swear to God, Gary, his face went white. He said, "Why did you ask me that?" And I said, I'm just seeing you pull way away from your female acting partner. And the first words I heard were engagement. "How many times have you been engaged?" 6, he said.
Wow.
And I said, "And you've never gone ahead and completed marriage with..." Well, anyway, to make a long story really short, we got right down to what it was when it started. It started with his mom and something that he witnessed in his childhood. And I want you to know that 6 months later, he got married. And stuff would happen like that all the time in class.
So you're responsible for a lot of marriages.
Well, at least that one.
And how about the baby side, too?
What?
And the baby side. People get married, they have babies.
And a lot of career success. And a lot of my students went on to be healers themselves, graduated from Santa Monica College of Healing. And it's just, we all do it, guys. It's nothing that's weird or out there. Anytime you've said, gosh, I wonder what so-and-so's doing, and the next day they call you, that's channeling. All information about everything is open to all of us. It's just hanging out right above your heads. But, again, you have to ask for it. And then you have to trust yourself that you are hearing and receiving the highest information.
That's interesting. Yeah, I really have never tried it, and I'm going to try it here tomorrow. Actually, tonight, before I go to bed. I want to be rich. I want to have $15 in my bank account for a change.
15, huh?
Well, I don't want to be greedy.
Oh, okay. Well, there's your belief right there.
Interesting.
Who taught you that having a lot of money was greedy?
I got to be honest with you, and my regular listeners know this. When I was a little kid, we had my mom's cousin and her husband were multi-millionaires. They own apartment complexes, they own restaurants, they own car washes, they own everything. You could imagine they owned it. And here's the thing. Every Christmas we'd get together, because back then, families, cousins, everybody would come into our house and we would celebrate Christmas. Every Christmas, I'll be honest with you, like I remember when I was about 6 years old, I opened a package up from them. And Disneyland, back then, they had the Walt Disney figures like Pluto, Donald Duck,
sure.
Bubble Bath, and the little plastic, and it looked like, Donald Duck, but it was full of bubble bath, right?
Yep.
Well, guess what? I got Bubble Bath, and I go, this is real light. I look in it, and it's empty. So that's what they would do. Or they would go down someplace, and here's a pair of new...
The first thing I heard was that they weren't nice. That's the first thing I heard. So, what happens... And look, our little kids are running the show. Whatever we were taught or modeled when we were children, that becomes our belief system. And then we build on that from the time we're very young. And that's why our lives end up being not as fulfilled as we want them to be until we realize we don't have to buy into those beliefs anymore. So what you did, I'm testing it here as I'm talking. This is the highest, What you did in your little Gary boy mind was money equals not being nice.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, well, welcome to you having the opportunity to shift that around. Because, guys, the truth is, the more you have to share. And money has absolutely no power. When I go out and speak live, I will throw a bunch of money on the stage. And I'll say, okay, I want you all to watch that money. For the next 2 hours, you watch all the bad shit that money's going to do. Which, of course, it never does because money doesn't have any power. Our consciousness around money has power. For sure.
And that makes sense.
I can hear my grandmother say, they're the rich people, we're the good people. And that's pretty much what every religion teaches us. So isn't it funny that the Catholic Church is the richest in the world?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, change the subject because we only have a few minutes left. All
right. I know you want to talk about movies. Go.
Yeah, because the people want to know, what age were you when you got interested in wanting to be in a movie or actress?
Well, I started out. My parents started me out modeling. When I was little, because I could help make money for the family. So I would perform around town when I was very young, 6, 7, 8 years old. I was the Imperial Margarine Princess. I was the Del Comic Queen. And then I became a high school teacher. And it's a very long, great story, but we don't have time to go into it. So I taught a year of high school, and I said, I'm going to New York to be an actress. And everybody, Gary, said, are you kidding? Nobody knows you. You don't know anybody. You're a little girl from Kansas. And I was so naive. I said, no, I'm going to go be a movie star. And do you know that it only took me 7 years between the time I left for New York and did E.T.
Oh, wow.
It's unheard of. It's unheard of. But again, I said, thanks for sharing. I'm just going to go. I can always come back and teach school, right? And so everything just fell into place for me.
Well, yeah,
you see, I was living what I'm teaching now without being conscious of what I was doing. Now I'm conscious of it and can teach everybody else.
It's interesting, too. And the films you've been in, like The Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah. That was my first film after a religious film that I did. And, I didn't go looking for horror films, but they kept finding me. And the more I did them, the more I found I really loved them, because I have a very full emotional life from my childhood, and horror films allow you to play very big arcs and use a lot of different emotions. And, what you love, you attract more. So The Hills Have Eyes, and then The Howling, Cujo, which is my favorite film of all the films I've done. Of course, E.T., which was not a horror film, which is such an amazing movie that it's our Wizard of Oz. It's everything I teach, really. Very interesting that it's really everything I teach in my healing work. And to this very day, I think I have 3 new horror films coming out. Some of them are very hardcore. Some of them are more like Cujo, psychological horror. Again, I just love creating and working and being busy. And my motto is that I live every moment until I transition to the next place.
Wow. And you started out, too, on some TV shows like The Streets of San Francisco. That was my favorite show when I was young. Starchy and Hutch, which we lost one of them today.
I know. I was so sad when I read that today.
Yeah, you kind of
Starchy and Hutch. Somebody just texted me, oh my God, Dee, I just saw you on Taxi, which was the first comedy that I did. I was scared to death. and you know, I was really the queen of movies of the week in the 80s. I can't even tell you how many of them I did and how many amazing actors that I worked with during those years. Of course, 10 I did with Bo Derek and Dudley Moore. And it's interesting that Spielberg saw me in The Howling and called me in to audition for used cars. Didn't get used cars, oh darn. But when E.T. came along, he just called and offered it to me. Another Hollywood story. You know, but there wasn't anything in me, Gary, that said, oh, that can't happen. I'm only a girl from Kansas. Can't do this. It never occurred to me, ever.
You know, again, you know, it's strange. You know, like my dad, one of his good friends he met, my dad served in World War II in Korea. And while he was waiting to get shipped from Korea, he became friends with, well, the guy who played, James Gardner.
Oh, my God.
And you know, when I was a little kid, every summer, James would come up to our house in Seattle and visit with my dad a day or two, or my dad would go to California. And I didn't even know who the guy was. I thought he was some guy rich, which he was. And, you know, it was really cool. One day he came and I was just watching the old reruns of Maverick. And I said, oh, my God, you look like that guy right there. He goes,
oh, my God.
And he goes, Gary, that is me. And my dad broke out laughing because they assumed I knew he was famous, you know. I just thought he was one of my dad's friends.
Oh, that's a beautiful story.
But, you know,
great.
He grew up, too, I think, Oklahoma or someplace like that, you know, on a farm. I mean, you know, he's really a wholesome person.
Yeah, well, you know, there's a lot of us from the Midwest who made it.
Rob Zombie, how did you work for him at all?
Oh my God, I've done 5 projects with Rob.
What's he like?
Oh, he's wonderful. He's just wonderful. And, you know, Rob Zombie's Halloween was the first time I worked with him. And we were sitting waiting for them to set up, and I said, what's your favorite film this year, Rob? And he said, Little Miss Sunshine. And I said, oh my God, don't tell anybody. It'll ruin your whole persona. But Jerry, I love them both so much. And she brings him his health food shake and his vitamins every day on the set. And they just, I just think he's incredibly creative in music, in directing, in art. He's just amazing to work with. I just love him.
Who was your favorite actor working with in a horror movie?
In a horror movie?
A scary movie.
Honestly, I would have to say my husband, Christopher Stone.
Okay.
You know, he did The Howling with me. He played my husband. He played my lover in Cujo. And I didn't get him, by the way, either one of those roles.
Okay.
Got it on his own.
How did he get those roles?
In The Howling, Dan Blatt, our producer, called and said, oh, Dee, we've got such a great cast for you, but we can't find the guy to play your husband. And I said, well, exactly what are you looking for? And he said, well, you know, somebody who's really virile but has this sensitive side to him. And to myself, I went, oh, my God, I'm living with him. But in that second, I went, don't you dare say that, Dee, because they'll never be open to it then. So I said, you know, Dan, I worked with this actor on Chips, Christopher Smith or Stone, some kind of S name. And so they went out and found him and brought him in, and he got the part. And Dan called me the day after, and I picked up, and he said, Dee, I'm sorry. I guess I called the wrong number. You know, that guy, we tracked him down, and we hired him, and I was calling to talk to him. And I said, no, Dan, you've got the right number. And there was this long pause, and then I hear, oh, shit. I said, don't worry, we won't gang up on you. You'll only have to get one trailer, Dan. So we all became very good friends. And he sent me Cujo, and I said, oh, my God, I have to play this part. But, Dan, this love scene, you know I don't do nudity. He said, well, we want to hire Chris for that part. And I said, okay, awesome. And I still don't do nudity. He started laughing. He said, we'll work it out, Dee. Don't worry.
I also hear from the grapevine you had one of the scariest screams out there. And the producer, the director didn't think you would have. And they wanted you kind of to like do your best, and they would kind of put a canned one in. But I guess you did really good, didn't you?
Well, yeah, it didn't go down in The Howling. And I think really Joe Dante, our director, didn't want me to strip my vocal cords. And he said, don't worry, just give us a little scream and we'll dub something in. And I went, well, give me a shot at it. And he looked at me and said, hey, if you want to do it, do it. So I did it, and they used my scream, and they just echoed it. And that's how we got that scream at the end of The Howling.
Yeah, but you screamed in several other movies, too, I can tell you that.
I screamed in everything, Gary.
I know.
Everything. Even in E.T., I screamed.
Well, yeah, but the one that The Hill Has Eyes, okay? I mean, what was that like, making that movie? Because it got really intense at one point, didn't it?
It was intense, and it was tough. I mean, we were working in the Mojave Desert. You died of the heat during the day, and you froze at night. And it was so far away from L.A. that finally Christopher said, look, this is too dangerous. We're just going to rent you a hotel room, which, I was making scale, so basically used most of my money to rent a room, pay for a hotel room. But, and we all stayed in one trailer. And the bathroom broke. I mean, it was challenging, very challenging. And they told me that damn scene with the tarantula, oh, it can't hurt you. It can't. Yeah, well, so I did the scene, and then I find out the only reason that it couldn't hurt me is because they milked it before the scene, right? So they can be extremely dangerous. And a lot of people got hurt, and that's true on every horror set. I mean, you just have to do some really snarky things, and people get hurt.
Oh, yeah. I had this one actor on a couple of years ago. I can't remember his name now. But when he was starting out, they were making a horror movie out in a cave somewhere, out in the desert, by the way. And they said, oh, don't worry about it. We sent our lady into the cave. There's no snakes, right? And the first thing he noticed, all the other actors were wearing boots, high boots. Not him. The outfit they gave him to wear, he wasn't wearing boots. He was wearing tennis shoes. And then when he was in the cave, there was rattlesnakes.
Are you? Oh, my God.
They lied to him. He said they thought he lied. And then another scene he had where they were coming to kill him, he had to crawl into this old mobile home, and right underneath it, there was a whole bunch of snakes.
Yeah, I mean, they told me that scene in Cujo where I have to break the car with the window with the baseball bat, and they said, "Look, we're going to shoot it in slow motion, so we really, really need you to hit it hard. But we have it treated. You can't break it." Yeah. Well, welcome to an actor's adrenaline. 3 hits, and I broke the window. And everybody was so startled that nobody yelled cut. Well, if an actor doesn't hear cut, you keep going. So half of my brain was going, "Get the kid, the dog's coming." And the other half is going, don't drag him over the glass. You're going to hurt him. So I do this stupid waddle thing to get him out of the car. Still don't hear cut. Run all the way up to the house. Finally, I hear cut. And Dan, our producer, runs in and goes, "Oh, my God, Dee, are you okay?" And I went, "Yeah, why?" And he takes my arm, and, of course, I've slipped my arm all the way up to the elbow because it went through the glass when I was not supposed to be able to break the glass. And he looked at me and he said, "I hate to ask you to do this. Can we put an ace bandage on? Can you do it one more time?"
One more time, yeah.
One more time before we go get your arm fixed.
Oh, wow.
We did.
Hey, Dee, we're out of time. Again, why don't you share your books to the listeners, and whatever you want to share, please do.
All righty. Well, my website is IamDeeWallace.com. You can buy my books over the website, or you can get them all on Amazon. The latest book is Born, Giving Birth to a New You. That's the one that has all of the information about manifestation. It's really a formula. And BuppaLaPaloo is my children's book. That's also out, available on Amazon. And you can find me all over social media and stuff.
And how can they find your show?
Oh, yes. Okay. You want to go to my homepage at IamDeeWallace.com, and it will show you how to call in to the radio show. And if you call in and want to speak with the channel, you just press 1 after you call in, and it will put you into a lineup to be called.
Well, great. Hey, Dee, also my voiceover guy goes, if you want that bio, he's more than happy to give it to you, and you can use it for anything you want.
Oh, how lovely. Sure, send it to me.
Okay. I will have my producer get a hold of your rap, and we'll get it to you. Again,
okay. How lovely.
I wish you a very, very nice 2024.
I'm directing it, baby.
Okay, kid. You take care.
All right. Love y'all. Bye-bye.
Okay, you take care, kid. Okay, bye. Well, I can tell you, it was a great interview. We're going to be right back here in a minute. Actually about 5 minutes. So go get yourself a cup of hot Java or something, and we will be back here very shortly.
you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you lived in, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you're broken, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you lived in, once you said you love. With the high words, with the strange looks. Once you're broken, once you lived in. With the high words, with the strange looks. Once you're broken, once you lived in. This is all I've got. This loving heart, this beating heart, this crying heart. This is all I've got. This loving heart, this beating heart, this crying heart. Don't try to break my heart. Once you're broken, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you're broken, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you're broken, once you said you love. Don't try to break my heart. Once you lived in, once you said you love.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network Newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the strange news. NASA radar captures asteroid as big as the Empire State Building. Scientists recently tracked an asteroid with dimensions comparable to the Empire State Building. The oblong space rock, dubbed 2011 AG5, measures about 1,600 feet long by about 500 feet wide, and was tracked from January 29th to February 4th, 2023, as it flew past the Earth at a distance of approximately 1.1 million miles. Quote, of the 1,040 near-Earth objects observed by planetary radar to date, this is one of the most elongated we've seen. Close quote. That according to JPL principal scientist Lance Spenner. Asteroid 2011 AG5 is the color of dark charcoal and takes 9 hours for one rotation, and completes an orbit around the Sun every 621 days. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. Coming to you live from the Night Dreams Talk Radio studios, it's this.
Just a little background. A megaton is 1 million tons of TNT. So the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima was about 12.5 kilotons or 12.5 thousand tons of TNT. So this weapon that we're talking about today is roughly 1,700 times more powerful.
Only Gary Anderson brings you such explosive content. Who wrote this?
Within 1/1000th of a second, a fireball would form, reaching out for 2 miles in every direction, 4 miles across. Temperatures would rise to 20 million degrees Fahrenheit, and everything, would be vaporized.
Nice ray of sunshine you got here, Gary. Anything else?
The blast would produce winds in excess of 650 miles per hour.
Awesome. And now, with probably more of the same, here he is, Gary Anderson!
I am back, and you know what, JC? I keep thinking the eyes. The hills have eyes. Did you watch that one?
Yeah, well, there's many. The one from the 70s is the one that Dee was on, but yeah.
1977.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, boy, she screamed in that one, too.
She definitely screamed in a lot of them, but yes, the Howling and Cujo, and my God, there was a whole 195 movies and film.
I know, 295.
Oh, was it 295?
290. You were off by 100.
100, geesh.
You hear that, Mark? He was off by 100.
I heard.
Yeah, well, Mark, how are you doing? Did you have a good Christmas?
I did. And you, how did your Christmas go?
Well, I got socks.
Hey, you know what? That's more than I got.
I got T-shirts.
You know, what do you get for someone like me, for instance, who I buy all my gifts during the year because I want to get my telescopes up. I want to get my equipment. So by the time it comes Christmas time, Gary, there's nothing left to get me. So I basically just show a smile and say, I'm happy with a smile, guys. That's all I need.
Yeah, they kept saying, like, my birthday is on Monday, and everybody, what do you want for your birthday? I go, I don't need anything.
Exactly.
I mean, I really don't. I got like 10 years worth of underwear and socks and T-shirts. I don't need anything for the studio because I have more than most. And I'm in photography. How many cameras do I need?
Exactly. Right.
Exactly, I would like that big telescope you use, though, for your stargazing.
That one there is our East Coast one that you see right there in the background. And it's here being rehabbed in my office. And we have one out in Arizona in the desert there, and we're putting another one in. And that next one is going to be just as good as the first, you know. And maybe it'll give us a better view of some of these asteroids that keep whizzing by us. You know, we've got like 200 of them just in 2023 alone that are going to make close passes to the Earth. But I say close, millions of miles away. So,
how about the one that, you know, I was mentioning to you last week that's supposed to pass by 2029? That is going to be like 20,000 miles away from our planet.
Yeah, are you talking about Apophis?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's a really cool asteroid. And the thing is, Apophis got legs, and I'll tell you why. It doesn't obviously have legs, but it got legs because of the fact that when it was found, it was found at Kitt Peak in 2004. Now, that first observation is a very, very rough observation. So the asteroid has immediately said, okay, well, until we know the details of its orbit, we're going to put it into the risk table, the Sentry list, the list of objects that could pose a danger. You know, right now there's 32,000, almost 33,000 near-Earth objects that we know of, and of those, 1,620 are in this risk table that say, well, at some point maybe they could be a danger to us in some way. But only 19 of those, of 33,000, only 19 are big enough to cause any moderate to significant damage on our planet. And really, not many of them have a better than 1 in 500 chance of hitting us. So Apophis, when they first saw it, they thought, wow, this one could be dangerous, right? I mean, this is a pretty big asteroid, right? It might have a pretty good chance of striking us. It's 1,100 feet across. That's pretty big. So we thought, all right, we better look at this. So in subsequent approaches, they started looking at it with the radar data. And this radar data showed better and better path information for its trajectory through our solar system. And since 2004, we've managed to get a really, really good orbit for Apophis. And now we can say that, yeah, in 2029, it's going to come through probably, not within striking distance of the planet, but it's certainly going to do a flyby All right. And the 2021 flyby gave us more radar data to refine its orbit. So it got removed from the Sentry List table at that point. So no longer a threat, not going to hit the Earth. So that's pretty good. At least we know that.
How about in the future, though?
Yeah. Well, in the future, okay, we're clear for the next 100 years.
Well,
right.
Yeah, but okay, 100 years from now, could another asteroid bump into it or a space rock and then cause it to maybe come closer?
You know what's interesting about that? And I've thought the same thing. Space is big. Okay, it's amazingly large, and so asteroids don't run into each other every day. Even out in the asteroid belt, you can fly through the asteroid belt and never hit anything. It's not as packed as people think. So there's a lot of space out there. So the chance of Apophis, and in fact, Apophis isn't even in the asteroid belt. It's a near-Earth asteroid. So it's got a fairly well-defined orbit, and it doesn't intersect with any other orbits of anything. So unless it's something we don't know, Gary, I mean, hey, could be that, right? But look, we've got 200, like I said, 200 asteroids that are going to be passing by us in the next year alone, in 2023. And some of these asteroids are 60 meters in size, 400 meters in size, right? But their distances are going to be huge. They're going to be way, way far away. They're going to be, 8, 10, 5 lunar diameters away. So we're talking about rocks that are going to miss us by a fairly good margin.
Well, how about the one in 2029? Are we going to be able to take our binoculars if we live in the right part of the country, like on the East Coast, and hopefully we're not cloudy? You'd be able to see it, wouldn't you?
Well, you probably need a telescope because, all of these asteroids are well over what's called magnitude. Magnitude is a brightness scale, and they're all over magnitude 15. They're up toward most of them are actually magnitude 20, 22. So very, very dim. The higher the number, the fainter it is. Give you an idea, okay? Vega, the star that's the bright star over your head in the summer, that's magnitude 0, okay? And the higher the number, they get fainter. So, you're talking about stars that might be magnitude 4 and 5. You can see those in a city if you're lucky. In the countryside, you can see to magnitude 6 perhaps. In a big city, you might maybe see magnitude 2 stars. All right, that gives you an idea how bright they are. And we're talking about magnitude 20 plus for some of these asteroids. Now, why are they so dim? Well, first of all, they're so small in general, right? They're not as big as a planet, obviously, right? And they're also pretty dark, okay? They're also really dark. Now, that asteroid that we heard about just now in your news, right? That was 2011 AG5. 2011 AG5 is a weird one because it's actually long and thin, right? And there's images of it rotating, taken by the Goldstone array. And you can actually see it rotating because the radar data that was sent out comes back and we build an image and then we can actually put it together. And now you watch the actual asteroid rotating in space, right, over time. Well, that one is really dark. It's charcoal dark. In fact, I think it said that in your news item. So, and most asteroids are really dark, and we take these longer exposures of them so we can see them, and they look gray when we take these long exposures, but they're really dark. And so Apophis is probably going to be similarly very dark and thus not very bright.
If say 100 years from now it slams into Earth,
yeah,
I mean, what could happen?
Funny you asked that because
it's not funny. That's why I asked. I'm scared.
Yeah, I did a study. Now, if you were, let's say it hit 100 miles away from you, okay, the fireball. First of all, let's talk about what would happen. It would probably begin breaking up around 200,000 feet up in the atmosphere. And would reach the ground in broken chunks. Okay, that would certainly happen. Now, the impact release energy would be 1,200 megatons. Okay, 1,200 megatons. So 1,200 million tons of TNT. That would be the release energy. And the crater would be almost 3 miles in diameter. Now remember, you're 100 miles away when this happened. The fireball from the impact would be around 2 miles in diameter. Okay, so far, so good. You're okay. All right. Now, from 100 miles away, here's what you'd feel. You would get an earthquake of magnitude 6.7, all right? And that would reach you just a few minutes after the impact. The debris cloud from the stuff thrown up, the bigger stuff, would arrive 3 minutes after impact at 100 miles away. Fine dust at this distance with some larger chunks would show up. And then you'll get an air blast. Now, the air blast, of course, is that massive rush of air that moves outward from the explosion location. And that air blast would arrive 8 minutes later. And from 100 miles away, it would sound as loud as heavy traffic. It doesn't sound so bad. But you have to keep in mind that ejecta, that stuff that's thrown out, Gary, is going to go all over the place. And depending on the angle that it strikes the Earth, if it strikes a glancing blow, it'll be less energy release. If it strikes a direct, straight down blow at 90 degrees to us, man, that's going to be a tremendous impact. If it hits the water, it'll be different. If it hits the land, it'll be different.
What happens if it hits the water? What would happen then?
Well, in a split second, it would go all the way to the bottom of the ocean, okay? And it would get lots of bottom sediment thrown up into the atmosphere. Because you got to keep in mind, when it comes in at, say, 11 kilometers per second, all right, it's going to end up going into the water and going through the water in a very short period of time. And it won't vaporize the water because it's going to have time it'll have cooled off a little bit before it strikes, and its energy will be reduced because of the friction with the atmosphere, but it's still going to make it all the way there. And so, number one, there'll be tsunamis of some kind, of some magnitude, depending on where it hits. Next, there'll be dust and debris from any bottom sediments that made it up to the surface and out into the atmosphere. All right. And they're going to be, of course, superheated because the impact is going to release a lot of energy. We're converting kinetic energy, the energy of motion, into heat upon impact. So we're going to get this massive fireball upon impact. And that's why it's a fireball, because the kinetic energy is so high that it has to go somewhere. So it goes into thermal energy or heat. So if it hits the water, that you might think, well, that's better. Except that it'll create tsunamis in that ocean on all the shorelines, on every part of that ocean. Now, is that better than striking the land and sending up a bunch of sediments that might end up blocking out the sun? It's a mixed bag. Pick your poison, man.
If you're living near the beach, I wouldn't want to be there. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no. Because the mistake people make sometimes in tsunamis is they see the water start to recede and go out like a low tide.
Yeah, and they're looking at it
quick, right? And people go down because they say, "Wow, this looks strange," and then in the distance they see this roaring cauldron of water just coming toward them, and by the time they try to get out of the way, they're done for. That was the reason for a lot of the Banda Aceh deaths was when the water receded. Some of the people were curious and they started walking down to the beach, and they ended up perishing because they couldn't outrun a tsunami.
Yeah, I've seen some of those. They had a mini one here in California, I think last week.
Oh, you're right, actually. That's right. It was from an earthquake that had occurred. And depending on the earthquake, if the earthquake just moves, like if the plates move like this against each other, well, that's one thing. But if they move up and down, okay, that's when you get this upward thrust, and that pushes the water up and causes a tsunami because water's not compressible. You can't compress it like air in a container. So if you push up 10 feet, the water goes up 10 feet. All right. So that is the kind of thing that will generate a tsunami. And it's a tsunami is like throwing a rock in a pond and watching the ripples go away. It goes in all directions from the source of the impact, right? The source of the sound, the source of the earthquake. So we see that happen too, and if an asteroid strikes, that's going to happen in all directions. And if you think you're on the far side of an island away from the impact, you might say, ooh, we're going to be safe over here on our beach. But in fact, the opposite is true. Your beach is probably going to get slammed worse than the side facing the tsunami. And that has to do with the way water wraps around. It'll wrap around, and then it'll be amplified on that far side and do more damage on the far side potentially than on the side that was facing the tsunami to begin with.
I never thought about it that way. Yeah, that does make logical sense, you know.
Yeah.
Find a mountain on that island real quick and get up it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, in the Banda Aceh earthquake, the animals were acting really strange out in the harbor. And one of the local tribal chiefs noticed this, and he told all of his people to evacuate because I think he said there was the dolphins that were acting really strange. And he evacuated the whole village up to the highest spot on the island. And sure enough, the tsunami did affect their village, and they survived because their chief brought them to higher ground because he noticed how the animals were acting strange. So, you know, and that's interesting because I don't know if you saw it, but there was some studies that showed that it may not be long before we understand how dolphins communicate and maybe communicate with them ourselves. Did you ever think about that?
I have, and you know, again, that is so interesting. I know the Navy did it for a long period of time, and now they've moved to over some other type of marine life that they're trying to do whatever the same.
Yeah, you know, and on our Sunday evening radio shows on Sky Tour Radio, we talk about creatures in the ocean that are smarter than they should be, like the octopus. I think the octopus is probably the most intelligent creature in the ocean. Right? He has 8 arms and 8 brains. In each one, there's a brain per arm. And they solve puzzles, right? They can actually solve puzzles. So communicating with animals might be a way for us to have early warning systems about earthquakes and about tsunamis in the event of an asteroid strike. It's actually not unrelated.
What happens if an asteroid hit in the wrong part of the ocean where we have a fault line?
That's a question. You know, it depends on the energy that's pumped out of the impact. But the Earth is actually pretty big, and unless the asteroid was extremely large, I don't think much of anything would happen. You know, that's like saying, you know, people have said, well, what if they explode a nuke on a San Andreas fault? You know, could that cause it to rupture? Not really, because that fault is an extremely long the multi-dependencies along that fault that might cause it to slip a little bit. And one nuclear strike isn't going to cause it, one asteroid strike isn't going to cause it to go slipping away unless that spot it hits is the last point of tension where everything else is released waiting for this one last spot. So the chances are exceedingly slim that an asteroid would actually cause earthquakes around the planet. You know, I know that there's a lot of science fiction talk and a lot of talk about potential doomsday because of an asteroid strike, but we've had it happen before, and it didn't kill everything. You know, even the Chicxulub impact that wiped out the dinosaurs, it didn't wipe out the dinosaurs because the strike wiped them all out and killed them. No, it sent up a cloud of dust into the air, and the herbivores that ate plants, they died off because the plants died off when they lost the sun. And then the meat eaters that ate the herbivores died off because the herbivores were gone. And the meat eaters were probably turning on each other. And then they died. And that led to this domino effect, this cascade of failures that led to an extinction event that caused this, this dinosaur extinction. And if not for that extinction, by the way, our existence would be in jeopardy because back 252 million years ago during the Permian period, mammals, the things that would become mammals, were kind of becoming dominant. And they were wiped out by a massive volcanic eruption that raised the temperature on the Earth 21 degrees. That's a lot, and it did it in just a few weeks. And that was enough to kill 96% of all life on the planet. Wow. And still that little 4% Okay, the things that survived were the things that would become dinosaurs, and so the age of the reptiles began, and that lasted all the way till the Chicxulub impact 65 million years ago.
Interesting. And again, now also on the moon, I was reading a science journal a couple weeks ago. They said there was some volcanic action going on the moon. And, I always grew up thinking that the moon was a dead planet, nothing there.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've noticed things like there have been some volcanic outbursts, gas outbursts that seem to defy our understanding of the moon. And although you've heard the statement that was made long time ago that said, when things struck the moon, like the discarded stage that held the lunar module, when that struck the moon, the impact made the moon ring like a bell, right? And that started the whole hollow moon thing because people thought bells are hollow, not thinking that bells need an opening at the bottom, okay, for the sound to escape from. So it wasn't that the moon is hollow. In fact, it was that it's actually mostly solid. Right, but this challenges our belief that the moon is nearly solid. It's certainly solid more than it's hollow for sure, and there's probably not many voids in the moon. But we know that there has been seismic activity that can't be readily explained as impacts, and that there have been what appears to be volcanic outbursts on the moon that were more recent than billions of years ago when the moon was volcanically active. So it's possible that we don't have all the answers about our very own moon.
Well, interesting too is like if there is volcanic action going on the moon, which means then maybe the core of the moon has molted, whatever.
Well, that's true. And one of the things is the current theory is that the moon's core is very small, but still molten. Okay. Outside that, it rapidly gets hard, and then it's solid all the way out. But clearly, that may not be the case. There might be hot spots, which, for instance, created Hawaii. Okay, the Hawaiian Islands are a chain of islands that were uplifts through the mantle of a hot spot. And as the plate moved over that hot spot, a new island popped up, bink. And then as it moved over, bink, another one. And you see the chain of Hawaiian Islands, which literally show you the direction that the plate's moving. The youngest on one side and the oldest at the other. So it's perhaps possible that there's a hot spot on the moon like that as well. Maybe there is a mantle-type plume on the moon that might be causing volcanic activity. Or it could be a misunderstood impact that we missed, that caused some type of activity that passed for a volcanic outburst of some kind. Not sure, but I do think that we have to keep an open mind about the moon, because as much as we learn some new surprising things almost every day, don't we?
Oh, we do. Let's take this 2-minute break and we'll be back with Marc. Marc, if you don't mind, maybe we'll take one or two call-ins to ask you questions. And I got a couple questions to ask you when we come back. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back with Marc right after this.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with The Strange News. Humans may have eaten giant snails 170,000 years ago. Scientists have discovered the earliest evidence of humans eating giant snails, according to a new paper published in the journal Quaternary Science Reviews. In a southern African cave, paleontologists uncovered pieces of shells from large land snails that date from 70,000 to 170,000 years ago. From past research, scientists had evidence of humans eating snails around 49,000 years ago in Africa, and about a poultry, by comparison, 36,000 years ago in Europe. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. broadcasting to you live in his underwear. Sorry. From the studios of Night Dreams Talk Radio, you're listening to Gary Anderson. He's the bomb.
The size of nuclear bombs today has evolved from the 1960s so that they are smaller but more accurate.
Hey, are we talking about weapons or Gary?
Even if the total megatonnage was actually less, the explosive force would be spread out more efficiently across the metropolitan area. So in that case, the actual destruction would be even greater than what I'm about to describe now.
Yeah, we're talking about Gary. On the radio, on the internet, and in worldwide syndication. Get ready for the ride of your life.
The destruction that I'm about to describe is likely an underestimation of what would actually happen. It still gives an adequate sort of approximation of the effects. So here we go.
Here's Gary.
And here I am, and I'll tell you what, I just love these intros. I wish I could come up with those. Anyway, Mark, we are back. They're trying to dig a tunnel to the, remember like those movies to the center of the Earth? What's your idea of them? Could that create something that could be a disaster for our planet doing something like this?
I think so, because the hole that they're talking about drilling is only a small hole. It's not a hole like a mile across or half a mile across. We're talking about a drill hole. And the problems with drilling deep in the crust of the Earth is the heat. As you get deeper, all right, you end up getting into an area where you're drilling and the drill is getting so hot that it will bind up and cease functioning. And that's what happened to the Russians when they tried to drill their deep hole. And that was something that obviously has been a science fiction staple, right? Drilling to the center of the Earth, that kind of thing. Yeah. And I know it's exciting to think about it, but we've barely got through the crust, okay? And we'd have to go into the mantle. And down there, what does drilling mean when the rock is like a plasticky, semi-molten, how are you going to get through that, and what technology would allow you to get through that? Your drill core, your drill shaft is going to heat up. The shaft farther up toward the surface is going to be cooler than the shaft down below. This one's going to get all droopy, and when you're spinning this guy's not going to want to spin. It's going to twist up on itself, So there's all kinds of there's monumental problems to solve if you're going to try and drill. So we need different technology than spinny drills made of some type of steel that are trying to go down into the Earth's core.
Now, a dumb question that somebody just messaged me is, these movies like, to the center of the Earth, where there is like, civilization, oceans and stuff in the Earth. Could there be pockets of anything like that?
The nearest thing to that in real life, okay, and not science fiction, is subterranean water that was found in aquifers deep in the Earth, more than they thought. And so, if you think about it, our planet is mostly water. So there's cracks in the ocean floor, and the weight of that water pressing down is going to squeeze water down through those cracks, and eventually, who knows how far down it can go, and if it reaches some kind of porous rock, it's going to fill that region, and that's possibly what we're looking at here for this water content we see deep in our Earth. But as far as voids, no, I don't believe we're going to see anything like that. All right, that's for Arnie Saknussemm and Journey to the Center of the Earth, which I thought was a really cool story.
How about other planets? I mean, could something like that exist? Like in Mars? Everybody thinks Mars is a dead planet, but slowly things are coming out where they feel that there was life on Mars. What's your feeling?
Yeah, the South Pole of Mars, that's a really interesting question, Gary. And I didn't know you were going to ask this, but that's good. On the South Pole of Mars, there was I can't remember which probe it was orbiting. Maybe the Mars Orbiter Camera, the MOC. Malin Space Science Systems, maybe. They were looking at the South Pole of Mars, and they discovered that approximately a kilometer down, or maybe 1.5 kilometers down below the South Pole of Mars, there was this massive, I think it was 12-kilometer long reservoir of liquid water on Mars. Now, wait. We can't have liquid water on Mars, we're told. That's true. On the surface, the pressure on the surface is very, very low.
Okay, Mark, I got to ask you a question. If I and you were on Mars right now,
yes,
and we zipped our pants down and peed on the ground, what's going to happen to that urine?
It's going to immediately sublimate into just vapor, like water vapor with some, uric acid and other stuff in it. It might not even reach the ground. It might sublimate as it's coming out. And plus, the source of these urine is going to freeze and probably fall off. But that's beside the point. But the thing is, the pressure is too low. And to talk about why there's no liquid water on Mars, we have to go through looking at something called the triple point of water. For sake of understanding, the pressure is too low, the temperature is too low, and the possibility of having water on the planet is precluded. Liquid water on the surface is precluded because of that low pressure and, of course, the low temperature. So the low pressure is the killer. Now, if you could raise the pressure, you could have liquid water on Mars, even if it's cold. And that's why underneath the strata and the rock at the south polar cap of Mars, they found liquid water because the weight of the rock pressing down is increasing the pressure on that underground location. So is it possible that there might be life there, Gary? The answer is unknown, but it's actually kind of exciting to think that maybe there is something there life-wise. It might only be microbial life. But look, we want to go to Europa, Jupiter's moon Europa. That's like 5 astronomical units away. That's a long distance. But beneath Europa's really thick sheath of ice, there is what appears to be a liquid ocean. All right. And that liquid ocean is going to be pretty warm because as Europa goes around Jupiter, it's getting squished and kneaded like dough by the other Galilean moons. We've got Io, which, by the way, is the most volcanic moon, actually, in the entire solar system. And then by Ganymede and Callisto, the gravity of those 3 moons are actually squishing Europa, and that squishing action heats it up inside, Gary, and that makes it warm, and it makes this liquid ocean possible. So is it possible there's life there? Well, NASA is sending a mission to Europa to study the potential for this prospect and to look for a place to land, an eventual lander, which may drill into the surface of Europa, go to the ocean, and possibly release a submarine, a tiny robotic submarine that would give us the answers once and for all.
Wouldn't that change everything if there was life?
I'm actually convinced that there is life there because all the requirements have kind of been met. We know there's carbon dioxide, we know there's hydrogen, we know there's water. So carbon-based life could very well have taken hold. Now, carbon-based life started here from a planet that was once a molten blob of lava, right? A magma that ended up cooling plates, and somehow life took hold here. Where'd that come from? See? So the possibility is that the universe creates these templates for life. As abstract as that may sound, it's a very strong possibility that the universe creates these templates that it then, get seeded automatically by the universe itself, through the very natural processes that are undergoing every day out there. So it seems like there might be life on Europa, maybe. There could be life in the atmosphere of Venus, in microbial life. We haven't been there to study that. The aquifers deep under the South Pole of Mars might have some life. we know that there's life here, although not intelligent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
Now,
So-
hey, Mark, we got a caller. Let's take this caller. Who do we have?
This is Tom.
Hi, Tom. How are you doing this new year?
I'm doing great. The question that I have for your guest is, there was a movie that came out not too long ago called Megalodon, and in that movie they portrayed a layer in the Earth's ocean that was very, very deep. I can't remember exactly the name of the gas that they said it was like a liquid gas that kept these gigantic creatures down inside, closer to the bottom of the ocean. But my question is, there are new discoveries being made all the time. And back in I believe it was 1936, they didn't think that the coelacanth existed. They thought it had been extinct for 65 million years until some fishermen hauled one up in a net. So my question is, what do you think the possibility is of something from a prehistoric age surviving down in the ocean, be it super gigantic squid or a gigantic shark or something of that nature?
That's a wonderful question. I actually deal with that question a lot. And the reason is because I, too, wonder if there are other species we have yet to find in the ocean. Now, you have to understand, and you probably do, that in the ocean, they're always finding new species. They're always finding new life forms. Now, they tend to be smaller objects, things that eluded detection before. But large creatures, those would be kind of hard to hide, so we probably would know about those by now. But we only know 16% of our oceans. In terms of bathymetry, mapping the bottom, we only know 16%. We have a rough idea where all the main trenches are, and we've got a really good map of those trenches. We know about other trenches. We know about really strange locations where there might be what are called clathrates, or methane hydrates on the bottom that are a very odd thing that could cause spontaneous release of greenhouse gases if poked and prodded. So is it possible that there's other creatures out there? I can't say no. That'd be arrogant in the science world to say absolutely not, because we certainly don't know everything, Tom. So it's very possible that there might be other things. As far as gigantic large things, that I'm not so sure about. We would know about, because those gigantic large things have to eat other gigantic large things. And I would expect that we might find some of those bones and remains. Although, I'll be honest, if we go into the deep sea, remember, we're going in elevators. We're going down in the research sub and then up. We're not on the bottom tooling around. Now, a friend of mine, Albert Bradley, Dr. Al Bradley, at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, created the Autonomous Benthic Explorer, which had NCC 1701 on one of its pylons. It kind of looked like Starship Enterprise. He has a sense of humor. And it would spend a year on the ocean floor, mapping the ocean floor, tooling around. It would sit there at night on its timeout, and it would feather its props in the current to charge the batteries. And it would just keep going. And it did that for a full year. So that's the most that we've done on the ocean floor for a longer period of time. There's other towed sleds that do side scan sonar, of course, and little by little we're filling in the data for what we're missing. But again, it's going right now. We're at 16% out of 100% that we know of the oceans. And when I say know of, I mean the bottom topography. Might there be something else down there? Yeah, maybe so. When you see Google Earth and you look at the ocean floor, that isn't the ocean floor in any kind of detail. So when you zoom in, you say, wow, look at these slopes. That's not what it looks like. That's an interpretation of very, very coarse data. The fine data shows up on Google Earth when you look at some of the tracks that show extreme amounts of detail in a rectangular swath. Those are the actual towed sled surveys that have been done. And those are accurate.
That's interesting too. And you think about, the octopus. Scientists keep coming up and saying they're alien. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't exist. I mean, what's your thought on that?
The octopus. I did a whole show on the octopus because I felt that it was the most intelligent species. If you take an octopus, and they did this experiment, you take a glass, a plastic chamber, you put an octopus in there, and you have one next door, and you put an octopus in there. This octopus has access to tubes, many tubes which go out. Only one leads back to the tank that they want to get to, and their food. All the others are gone. They go to dead ends. This octopus is watching this octopus probe these tubes, and finally it finds the way out. Then they open up in between the chambers. This octopus goes right out the very hole that he has to, and gets out on the first try. That says he was watching, and he was synthesizing an answer, and he knew in his mind, he said, that's the tube I go in to get out. And right there, that shows you that they have some type of capability to reason an answer. And it's not like the octopus has to go through and do this testing all over again. No, he was observing. And so the octopus is highly intelligent. I remember, talking to some folks at a Japanese restaurant, and they were having octopus. And I was like, oh, I can't have octopus. That's an intelligent creature. I can't eat that. No. And I won't, because that is an intelligent creature that we don't understand yet. It has a level of intelligence that we have yet to fully understand and grasp.
And you're right. Back years ago, we have a small marine land in Seattle, where they have a whole bunch of creatures and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. I knew a girl who worked there, and she said they have octopus, and they were actually one of them would keep getting out of the cage, out of the tank, go into another tank with an octopus, then come back out of it and go back into its own tank. And that tells me they have intelligence to be able to do that. To rationalize, you got to go back.
And why were they doing that? It may have been doing it because it didn't want to be caught doing it. It was logical enough to say, well, people show up around this time. So it had a concept of time, however that works, okay, for octopi, all right? And so it must have figured, okay, I have to get back before this particular time period gets here, whatever it is. They don't think like a clock. They think some other thing, which, again, we don't understand. All right. And then it probably had to get out and get back. Now, by doing that, it's back in its tank, and it's back where the humans will expect it to be. And in its mind, I could see it thinking, okay, I'm where I'm supposed to be. When the lights go off, the humans are gone. I'll go into the other tank and visit with my friend Sheila or whoever. And then I'll come back when the lights go on again, because I'll know that the humans are coming back. It could be something like that, and that shows that, for instance, that may show that the octopus is saying, I don't want to get in trouble, or I don't want them to know I was in here, and that is a higher level of thinking that I don't think that many creatures can do.
Well, I know even dogs don't. The intelligent level, from what I did on reading about octopus, they're very highly intelligent. They can recognize people. They can recognize a lot of different things and remember it. So, I mean, again, if somebody's eating octopus, God, that's like eating your next door neighbor.
Yes, and I'll tell you this. Okay, there was a guy that I know that rescued an octopus that was stranded on a beach. He put it back into the water, and the octopus was, touching him with his tentacles. And then the octopus went out to sea, and the guy came back to the beach like the next day, and the octopus was there, and he didn't know that. But then when the guy walked into the water, the octopus came up and started touching his tentacles to his feet, started wrapping around and hanging on. And the guy was like, caressing the thing and so forth. It's like, oh, well, how cute. Do you remember that I saved you? And we try to assign human, emotions to creatures, right? And human morality. It's thanking me for saving it. But I have to say, in the case of the octopus, it might actually be that it was thanking the person, or was in recognition of this person saying, oh, I know you. And how did it know him? Well, the octopus has other sensory organs that might have been able to detect vibration. It could have been a taste thing for the particular guy's foot or whatever. And then it says, hey, Frank's in the water. Let me go see Frank, that kind of thing. Again, we don't know. We don't have a good understanding of how this creature with 8 brains operates.
Yeah, and again, we think we're humans. That's why, when people, because we talk a lot about UFOs on the show. We talk about, life on other planets, and some people are so naive. Honestly, Mark, they think that we are the only ones with intelligence. And I'll be honest with you, you got to have an open mind, because that's not true. I mean, there's how many planets is out there? How many solar system and galaxies are out there? More than we can comprehend.
Yeah, and I mean, we can say right up front, there's more planets than stars. Yes, we know that, and we know that life is probably present in a good fraction of those planets. Intelligent life is exceedingly rare, but it's going to be there on a certain fraction of those planets. And on a fraction of those planets where there is intelligent life, it's going to reach a level of sophistication and technology where they could detect us, right? So the question becomes how far away would those life forms be that could detect us? And how far along in their technology would they have to be to see what we're doing, right? And so as you do all these things and you start to put it all together, you say, wow, the chances of them being right in our neighborhood and watching us might actually be somewhat slim. However, the more advanced they become, the smaller the universe becomes for them. And so I say it this way. I think that life in the universe is the rule, not the exception. Now, intelligent life, another matter. Another set of calculations, depends on a lot of things. We looked the way we did, and it took us 4.6 billion years to get to where we are, on the planet Earth. That's the overall timeline on Earth. All right. Since the very first hominids appeared with Lucy 4.2 million years ago or so, that's the ancestor we often go back to, Australopithecus afarensis. And when we go back to that, you say, well, since that time, 4.2 million years ago, we've progressed to this. All right. But wait, what if the Permian extinction didn't occur and those things that would be mammals 252 million years ago did become mammals? What if there never were dinosaurs? Where would we be now? Is it possible we'd be intelligent creatures 100 million years ahead of where we are now? Yes, it's possible. And, so is it possible that could have happened elsewhere? And the answer, of course, is yes. We see planets forming all the time. We see planets that are now forming. We see planets that are in mature, stable star systems. And we see planets that have survived the death of their star. So we see it all.
Could, some of these planets like Mars, could it have been like they had a civilization? Earth itself, when you think about it, some scientists firmly believe that the Earth has been rebooted 1, 2, who knows how many times. Again, the age of the Earth, they keep saying, well, you know what? The Earth is actually older. Some scientists say it's older than what we realize. Some say it's younger than we realize. How's your take on all this?
Yeah, I mean, we base what we know about our Earth based on the ruins that we find and the fossil record, the geologic record. And so putting all of that together gives us the numbers that we adhere to now, right? But this reboot concept of the Earth. Well, let's put it this way: you have plate tectonics, right? And where the plates meet other plates, sometimes they dive underneath. Okay, so if there was a city on the edge of this plate, and it was over time, over hundreds of millions of years, dove underneath this plate, this geologic plate, this city's wiped out, right? Evidence of it's gone. We'd never know it was there. Now, the question is, how much of that has happened in the history of the Earth? And the answer is not much. So, I mean, the truth is, if there was a civilization on the edge of a plate, we still might see some evidence for it because the plates have not recycled.
How about if there was a nuclear war at one point with the civilization back, biblical times or before?
Good question. I would expect that we'd see in the strata, we would see tracers for radioactive detonations that might have occurred. There has been, there was an iridium layer that was throughout the whole Earth from 65 million years ago when that asteroid struck the off Yucatan, and that was a symbol that, or signified that there was a strike from space, right? So, because that was a fine layer of iridium, and so we saw that, but we've never seen any radioactive tracers that indicated that there was a nuclear strike of any kind. So that's the thing that we would look for if it was a nuclear war. Follow? If it was something more advanced, well, we wouldn't know, would we? Because it's buried in our past, and there's a lot of holes on our planet, a lot of craters, Oh, there's actually thousands of them here on this planet,
Well, was that China? They found this big, cavern that it opened up where trees were growing. It had its own echo thing going on with water, the whole everything.
Yeah, that's true. There are small pockets where these ecosystems take hold, and they end up doing their own carbon cycle and their own, methane cycles and things like that. Another place where that's happening is in the deep cold of Antarctica, miles under the ice at Lake Vostok, under the ice of Antarctica. And down there's over 3,500 different species living down there. Nothing gigantic, but it's an isolated lake that hasn't seen the light of day in, well, I forget how long, but hundreds of thousands of years, maybe millions of years, maybe. But it's been going and going, and it has its own cycle, its own carbon cycle. Carbon's recycled back into the environment, comes back out. Okay, its own cycle of chemistry going on, its own cycles for methane and so forth. Has all of its own cycles. It's completely independent of the surface because it has to be. In other words, going back to Jurassic Park, where Ian Malcolm by Jeff Goldblum, right, said, well, life will find a way, right? Life does find a way to survive. And so I think that's something that I think we can apply not just to Earth, but to Mars, to possibly Europa, and to many other worlds we have yet to even find in the universe.
That's interesting. Now, I got a message here from a Lee in Minnesota. Is talking about Admiral Berg, supposedly in Antarctica, that they found an area that, was warm and it could support humans. What's your theory about Admiral Berg, all these rumors and stuff on the internet about it?
Well, I know that there's a place in Antarctica where there's very little snow. And it's like a dry valley. And so, in fact, this location is probably the driest on Earth. And so I could see how that would be possibly conflated into this warm area. It's not warm at all. In fact, it's exceedingly dismally cold there. In fact, it's an excellent training ground for Martian missions. Okay, Mars is far colder than that location in Antarctica, but this is interesting. I don't think that the Germans are hiding in Antarctica. I don't think that Admiral Byrd found things that. I just don't see any evidence for any of this. So, is it possible? Is it possible I'm wrong? Well, sure. I'd love to see evidence, to show that. I just don't think that Admiral Byrd found anything down there that wouldn't have made it into science and wouldn't have made it into the mainstream, because he wouldn't have hidden it. What's the agenda to hide it? Why would they hide it? They would want to announce it. They'd want to do like Charles Darwin, catalog the species and release the notes and talk about evolution, and they'd want to go through that, and so there's no military reason why they'd want to hide that. So I don't see any reason for anything like that to have been hidden.
I don't either. But again, years ago, I knew a guy who was on the USS Treasure, the submarine the
Thresher.
Yeah, but he actually, before it went out the last time, he got sick, so another one of his friends filled in for him.
And that's why you know him.
That's why I knew him. And actually, he worked for me at one place. He told me that, because he spent like 20-some years in submarines. And he said that there was times they were like followed, but it wasn't like a submarine. The thing would follow them and then go by really at a ridiculously high speed, faster than any submarine could ever maneuver underwater. Do you believe stories like that?
I not only believe them, but it happened to me. I was at sea on a U.S. submarine, and it was decades ago. That's plural, decades ago, when something went through the sonar at an exceedingly high speed, and the kid on the sonar had his arms out and turning to the executive officer. When the executive officer asked him the speed, he goes, several hundred knots, sir. And the kid had stayed there with his hands out. He didn't know what to do. The sonar guy on the sub is supposed to be able to identify everything, from whale farts to jellyfish humping or whatever, okay? They're supposed to be able to identify everything. That's what they went to school for. They're the eyes and ears of the sub. And when he was like this, talk about ripping away this guy's manhood, he had no answer for the executive officer. So the executive officer, upon hearing that, and the kid, I couldn't see the kid's face. I was to his left, and he was facing away from me. And the executive officer just looked down at him and said, "Okay, log it and dog it." And the kid went, "Sir, yes, sir." And he went right back to work. And I got up and I asked the executive officer, I said, "Sir, I'm familiar with," they called it a fast mover. I said, "I'm familiar with these fast movers. Is there anything I can help you with?" Now, I was an observer. I was not a sailor. I was asked to come on the sub, and I said, "Sure." Okay. For reasons I can't discuss. So then I said, "Is there anything I can help you with?" And he said, "Dantonion, right?" He said, "Sir, yes, sir." "You having a good trip?" "Sir, yes, sir." "Let's keep it that way." and he walks away. So several years later, Gary, I had to do a job for the Joint Chiefs. So I'm down in Washington delivering my project to them. They work here out of my home. And I sat with one of the chiefs. One of the chiefs that's exceedingly important in the U.S. Navy. And I said to the chief, "Sir, what can you tell me about the fast mover program?" And I was like, "Oh, I really shouldn't have asked that. That's really crossing the line," because I knew that it was probably something I shouldn't talk about. And he looked at me and he goes, "I'm sorry, Mark, I can't talk about that program." I think I skipped beats, because he was admitting that this is out there. This is real. This was decades ago, by the way, decades. And so I drove all the way back from Washington, D.C. like, I can't believe it's real. I can't. Oh, look out for that truck. I was almost not paying attention, Gary. It was like crazy. But man, I was completely blown away by this, because I thought he was going to say something like, "Oh, I don't know anything about it." Well, he does know about it. And as it turns out, years later, then the Nimitz incident comes out, then all this other UAP stuff comes out. Okay, UAP is the new brand name, by the way, for UFO, right? UAP doesn't carry the tinfoil hat, expectation with it. So UAP, you can talk about that to your heart's content. So UAP stuff comes out now, and wouldn't you know it, that among the Nimitz incident stuff, an immense incident observation, was Dave Fravor talking about this Tic Tac coming to the surface below another Tic Tac and frothing up the water. Wait, that Tic Tac below the water, was that one of these things? Maybe. See? And countless people have talked about these things throughout history as well as time. So there's definitely something going on. I'm pretty sure they're here. And if I was them, I would do what I think they're doing. I'd hide in the deep ocean because they go where we are not. And that's where we're not. We're not in our deep ocean. Remember, only 16% of it is what we know.
And that's scary because we can't take a submarine down to certain parts of the depths of the ocean without imploding. And if they have the capability of coming wherever they have the technology where they can probably do this. So they could be, who knows what's under there?
I agree. And I think I know how they're doing it, by the way. This is a very popular lecture that I give around the country. And it has to do with their methodology of travel, if you will. And, we're in 4 dimensions, X, Y, Z, and time, right? Our 4 dimensions. Everything we know about the universe in exploration is through these 4 dimensions. Well, there's a 5th dimension out there. And that 5th dimension is highly warped. The farther in you go, the smaller the universe becomes. So if you can go far enough into that, when you come back out, you can be light years from your last location. And if you only go in a little bit and pop back and forth, a little bit like this, oscillate back and forth, then you could go like just 10 feet ahead and you're not really here and you're not really there. So you could be in the deep ocean. You don't even need fuel. You don't even need propulsion. You just need a particle accelerator to generate these particles. And that is why I believe that UFOs were always round, okay, or triangular, okay, because they're particle accelerators generating the particles required to pull them into this 5th dimension. And they just pop out and pop in over and over rapidly. And this is why they seem to shimmer and disappear, possibly change color, possibly. Now, I'm an astronomer. Yes, I know all those things can be explained with other physical atmospheric anomalies. Yeah, absolutely. However, is it possible that this is advanced technology in play? And is it possible that this is how they're hiding from us? Because if they shift into that 5th dimension and they were doing it right in front of your eyes, Gary, they would literally vanish from your sight because they've actually left the 4 dimensions and gone to another dimension, okay, a 5th dimension, and then back again. This is not all science fiction here. This is well understood. In fact, the Atlas accelerator over at CERN is studying the very particles that are needed for this to occur, and they're called Kaluza-Klein gravitons.
Well, when Michio Kaku was on our show, he said we're very close to cracking the 5th dimension. So a lot of things what we think couldn't exist could exist, like parallel universes, portals, all that stuff. Again, maybe their technology, but going to like this thing falling the submarine. There's been people who claim they've seen them off of aircraft carriers, a light going by and then all of a sudden zooming off. This is going back even to the 1800s, whalers and seagoing, back when they had the sail ships. They said the same thing. They saw a bright light following them off to the side, and then all of a sudden it's like, woof.
That's right. And that's not the first time. In the 60s, there was a battle group of 5 ships with, I think, maybe it was more than that, but 5 submarines that were all trailing the battle group. And one of the submarines, probably a Sturgeon-class sub at the time, was actually following an object that was shadowing them. And at first they thought, well, maybe this is like a Russian sub. But then they noticed that it changed its depth very rapidly. And it would go very, very, very deep, way below the submarine's capability. And they come very shallow, almost in an instant. And then it would sometimes go over 100 knots and then slow down, and then several hundred knots and then slow down. And they followed it for 3 whole days trying to figure out what it was. And they never could figure it out because it vanished. All right. So there's lots of anecdotal evidence, all right, of things like that.
That's interesting too. If you think about all this stuff, again, now changing because we're almost out of time here. What's going on with the sun? Anything since we talked about it here about a month ago? Anything new going on?
Well, there's obviously, there's sunspots that occur in the sun. We've seen them, but nothing major. Now let's put that into perspective. When things major on the sun occur, bad things happen on Earth. Okay, excuse me. And these charged particles from the sun spiral around our North Pole and our South Pole. They go into the bedrock, and they travel through the bedrock. They knock out our electrical grids, and they just do all kinds of damage. Well, that hasn't happened. And so the sun is rather quiet right now. It's rather quiescent, as we call it. So not a whole lot going on right now. I mean, the sun is actually managing okay. Nothing bad is going on. We have a few flares that occur here and there, but nothing out of the ordinary. That coronal hole, that coronal hole is interesting because in those coronal holes, right, those are areas where the solar wind is coming through almost twice as fast, and those charged particles are reaching us twice as soon as the other particles being released from the normal coronal regions. So we're seeing a lot of that high-speed material reaching us from those coronal holes, and that's why in weeks past you might have seen, there's going to be aurora displays visible possibly all the way down to Washington, D.C., and it was because of that. I don't know, in Seattle, did you see any?
No, we didn't. But, people have, in Montana, Idaho, I was getting people saying they were seeing it.
Yeah. And that's because of the charged particles, Gary, that are racing around the pole, being trapped and going into our bedrock. And those charged particles do race up, steel pylon towers, electrical towers, and wreak havoc, overload circuits, overload substations, cause blackouts and brownouts.
Now we have Tom again. He has one question, and after that, we're going to find out how people can get a hold of you, how they can support what you do. So, okay, Tom, we have you back. Go ahead.
Yes, my question is with quantum physics being what it is, and the more they discover about nanoparticles, et cetera, what is your view on the possibility of down the road having something like warp drive, even though there are those who say, well, you can't exceed the speed of light? There seems to be some things that have come up in quantum physics that says that's not necessarily true. I just wondered how you feel about that.
Thanks, Tom. That's great. Let's talk about that warp drive. Okay, in 1994, Miguel Alcubierre came up with a concept that required tons and tons of energy, the equivalent energy of converting the entire planet Jupiter's mass to energy. You're familiar with the equation E equals mc squared. Well, put the mass of Jupiter times the speed of light squared. That equals the amount of energy, that you would need to just create this thing called a warp bubble that would allow you to warp enough space to be able to do this travel methodology through the Alcubierre drive. All right. That required so much energy that it was just impractical. Now, another scientist at a laboratory that worked for NASA worked on the problem some years later and figured out a way to streamline this and make it so you don't need the mass of Jupiter converted to energy, but the mass more of the Voyager spacecraft converted to energy. Now, this meant you could actually create your warp bubble for a lot less energy cost. However, you have to do it over and over and over and over again so that you can get to Alpha Centauri. And at the maximum speed you could go, you might get there in 5 days. And then coupling with several other theoretical physicists, they figured out a way to bleed off the energy that gets caught like bugs on the windshield, that when you stop, would come blazing off into the solar system or the star system you go into, and literally destroy it with the amount of energy that was acquired along the way. So they figured out a way to create these shields. And so this was a new version of the Alcubierre drive, which looked very promising, but it still required energy that we just don't have a way of harnessing yet. Now, enter this fifth dimension thing we talked about. That, on the other hand, doesn't have a limit to the way you can go. Now, the Alcubierre drive warps space. It's like folding paper up at the opposite corners and then crossing over that tiny little distance corner to corner and then unfolding it. That's the warp. Cross over the distance, unfold. You went from here to here without crossing in between here. So technically, light speed isn't an issue anymore for you. But with the process we talked about earlier, right, these Kaluza-Klein gravitons, the fifth dimensional space, that's a punch-out, punch-in prospect. And so you punch into the fifth dimension, and depending on how many particles you put around your ship, the farther you can go into that fifth dimension, and that means the farther you can jump when you come back, the farther you can set your re-entry point. Okay, and so you could literally make an entry point at Alpha Centauri from the Earth, possibly. Depends how far you can go in. So that might take the equivalent of only 20 minutes, not 5 days, which we thought was great, right? Because otherwise it would take 10 or 12,000 years to get to Alpha Centauri with our current setup. But if you take the Alcubierre drive, you can do it in 5 days. What an improvement! Not fast enough. The galaxy's 100,000 light years across. How long would it take you to cross that when 4 light years takes you 5 days, right? Holy cow. How about 100,000 light years? Forget it. You're now looking at a multi-generation ship again. So it wasn't even fast enough. So this process of going into the fifth dimension, this one actually holds promise. There's actually a name for the string theory variant that this comes from. It's called Randall-Sundrum 1, RS1. So if you look it up, and the Kaluza-Klein hypothesis, you'll see a lot of scientists will say, that doesn't seem possible. All right, well, the question is, then why is CERN investigating these particles? Why did they build the Atlas Accelerator? In part, to study them. There's a reason. They're very interesting. And it looks like they can do some things we didn't know they could do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, could they form a black hole?
No, because to see black holes require massive amounts of mass, and so they couldn't form a black hole in the conventional sense. There's a possibility they can make micro black holes.
Well, what could happen with a micro one? Isn't it China or somebody, or I can't remember, was it South Korea? Somebody did it just recently. It was in the news.
Yeah, micro black holes are interesting creatures, but you need to understand that all black holes evaporate. The smaller they are, the faster they go. Big black holes could take longer than the age of the universe to evaporate. Okay, sun-sized black holes, sun's mass-sized black holes, wouldn't exist. They have to be larger masses, and those would take longer than the universe has been around to evaporate. Micro black holes, on the other hand, they are so small they evaporate in just a few nanoseconds. So they're created. It's like popping bubbles on the surface of the water. Okay, it's like a bunch of froth on the water that suddenly just pops and goes away. Overall, there might be a net amount of them. And if you keep adding to it, you'll have a net amount. But they're coming and going so quickly, all right, that they can't really do anything in the amount of time they exist, except maybe absorb a photon here, absorb a molecule here, whatever. But they evaporate very, very quickly.
Interesting. And you answered that question. Now, if people want to donate to what you do, which I think is very important because you take the universe, the galaxy, and you bring it to people to see it. And I really enjoyed that photograph you posted the other day. I tell you, that was awesome. I would like to get one that good. How can they do this, Mark?
I'll make sure you get one. Okay, first of all, we are a nonprofit organization. You can reach us at skytourlive.org, skytourlive, all one word, .org. And if you go to the upper left there, you'll see SkyTour live stream. That's our live observatory. The telescope back here, this is the East Coast Observatory telescope that's in here for being refurbished. And we're going to put it back in the building out front here from our bunker. And the West Coast Observatory out in the middle of the Arizona desert has another one in it. We run that from here. I'm in Connecticut, and we run it all the way from here, everything about it. And we take pictures and send them up to skytourlive.org. And when you go to skytourlive.org, you scroll down, and you'll see, I want to see cool pictures. And you just read the instructions, click on the link, and bam, you're in a directory full of the most amazing pictures that we've taken for the last year. In the upper right corner, we have the left corner is SkyTour live stream. In the upper right corner is our Patreon. Please join our Patreon. Support us. We have a bunch of tiers that are right for everybody. And what we do is we bring you the universe live in real time. No one else is doing this. Not only that, no one else is providing you with all the pictures we take free of charge. We are. Okay? So if you support us, we can keep doing it. It's I hate sounding like a telethon, but it is through your donations that we can keep going, right? And I mean, the other night I was on and we had people donating, which was nice. And we're paying hundreds of dollars per month for the internet. Okay, out in the middle of the desert, you can imagine what we have to use. We have to use Starlink in the desert.
That's expensive.
It is. It's $100 per setup. Okay, and $120 per setup per month. And so we have to do that. So it'd be great, Gary, if we could get a really good following, get a lot of people. We're actually putting together now a design, and we have the design pretty much built for a mobile observatory, one that we can take to your town, your municipality, your university, your school, and do what we do with SkyTour live stream live for you in your location. So it could be a live event. I've been doing this around the country now. I've been going to different venues and connecting to our Arizona Observatory and having a live studio audience. Like I did one conference last year out in Palm Springs. We had 200 people live and like 400 people watching around the world. So, and then as time goes on, that count just goes up and up and up. And we capture some strange things. We've caught some really odd objects on our cameras, which we talk about. And not only that, we see some natural things happen that are rare. Things like a meteor hitting the moon. At the height of the lunar eclipse, the moon was blood red. And right in the lower left corner of the moon, we saw this bright white flash. We actually caught a meteor striking the moon during a lunar eclipse. The odds are astronomical.
That is awesome. We got one last caller for you. Let's take him, and okay. Again, I will be making a donation tomorrow, by the way. So, okay.
Well, Gary, you're a masterful genius yourself, and you know that. I'll make sure you get a picture for all your efforts anyway.
Yeah, and please tell my wife that, because she thinks the opposite. Okay, JC, who's our caller?
Caller, we have Michael on the line. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Hey, Mark, I have a question for you, brother.
Sure.
The fifth dimension drive, if there was an object within our atmosphere, and these other beings or these extraterrestrials were to use this within our atmosphere, would it cause an atmospheric disturbance?
As a matter of fact, that's a good question, because the nature of the way they operate is too long to get into here. But I would be happy to state this. In fact, I'll be talking about this at a conference out in Indian Wells coming up, and then in Ozarks in Arizona, Arkansas. But what happens is they're oscillating back and forth between this fifth dimension and our four dimensions, okay? And as they do that, they are really not here and not there. So they're tenuously here, but not really. That's the only way I can say it that would make sense. So they can move through the air at what seems to be impossible speeds and not have any influence whatsoever on the air. No sonic booms, no shock waves, no bow shock in front of the things that's moving. So that's because it's not really here, and it's not really in the fifth dimension, because it's always oscillating at a rapid speed. So it's going back and forth. So what happens is it goes into the fifth dimension and comes back, say, just like a foot ahead of where it was. And you might say, well, why is it doing that? Because it doesn't have propulsion. All it has is the ability to pop out of existence, go into the fifth dimension, and then make an entry point to a spot that is arbitrary, that they choose. And that spot might be a foot ahead of where they were, an inch ahead of where they were. Rapidly doing that, okay, means it looks like it's traveling in a straight line through your sky. But what's really going on is it's popping out and popping in all along the way. And it's doing only that. So no need for propulsion, no need for a fuel tank. It just needs to have a particle accelerator that's generating these particles.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Thank you, Mike. That was a good question.
And also, again, you want to share your website before I let you go?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm sorry. But if you want to reach me, please do come to skytourlive.org. On there, you can reach to contact us. You can talk to me. You can send me questions like about tonight's show or anything. And again, Sky Tour live stream is in the upper left, the Patreon's in the upper right. We also have an Etsy store called the Sky Tour Shop. If you want to see some of our amazing masterpieces we've created of the night sky on a blanket that you can cover a queen size or king size bed, we got that too. And it's really something. We have people that bought those. You want sneakers with our stuff on them? We got those too. It's incredible.
Gee, all I got is water bottles.
Well, we could do better than that for you.
Okay, my friend. Hey, thank you for coming on. We'll have you on, in a couple weeks again?
Yeah. Every 2 weeks, I think we're doing an astronomy thing, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looking forward to it.
Maybe we can actually, you can have some pictures we can display to the people too. We can work on that.
I only have a few hundred. I don't know.
Oh, well, we'll pick out the 2 or 3 of the best. How's that?
Tough call. I think I can do it.
Okay,
thanks,
my friend.
Gary. Thanks, everybody.
You have a good year.
Thank you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. We'll be right back, and we'll take 1 or 2 call-ins, and then after that, I'm going to head off to bed. Everybody, again, it's been a great show here tonight. We got taking 2 call-ins of, what was your Christmas like? What's your New Year's? What are you going to do for New Year's? So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Who's friends with all the night dreamers, talking to you at night. Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not in sight. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's talk show radio, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Dreamers talk show will fix your despair. If you want to talk conspiracies, Night Dreamers is for you. Top secret case, alien space, it's Gary with the news. Tune in on the radio, don't let Big Brother know. They're listening to everything, even Gary's late night show. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Show Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair, because Gary's talking to you at night.
Do you remember how great paranormal talk radio was in the 80s and 90s? Night Dreams Talk Radio brings back to you talk radio like you remember, with your host, Gary Anderson, broadcasting to you live from his secret compound deep in the great Northwest. Now, here's Gary.
And I am here.
Night Dreamers, the call-in line is open. Chat with Gary.
And you know what, JC? I'm thinking, did you get a stinker of a gift for Christmas? I did. I'm really frustrated because, my whole family's been trying to put me on a diet because, since my injury, I gained a lot of weight. And you know what they bought me for Christmas besides, socks? All kinds of candies, the fattening kind. Now, I don't know if they did this to, torture me, to see if I'm going to open up and eat it. But I tell you, that is torture. Did you get anything? It was like, I'm not happy with it.
No, actually, I got all great gifts. I can't complain at all. Now, I do know a lot of people, and even me, and, years past, you get the old, the clone box or the socks or the bow tie or the tie or,
Bow tie? Are you talking about the bow tie you put on, or you go get shot around your wrinkles?
That's Botox.
Well, Botox, bow tie. I mean, hey, it's late.
Yeah, but no, I got all great gifts. Can't complain. But listen. There's some real clinker gifts out there. I'm sure we all know. We've all experienced it, especially you, Gary.
Well, hey, I'm special, but I'm not special. Did you give anybody that you maybe don't like so much a gift that you wouldn't have given to your worst enemy that you actually gave to your worst enemy?
I've never done that, but yeah, I know some people do. And it's funny you mentioned the old shampoo there. That's a classic, I gotta tell you.
Well, I tell you what I did. This is okay. Statute of limitations is gone. This is my first wife. We're talking 54 years ago. 54 years ago.
Wow.
I am old. But we were in the process. I knew we were going to get a divorce. She was cheating on me. I think with the whole city, actually, of Kelso. So, she was a fanatic. She had to take a shower twice a day. I wonder why now. I know, actually, back then I couldn't figure out why. Or a bath twice a day. That's because she was busy, I guess. But I got this really great idea talking to my mother. She said, go get some Nair hair remover and dump out 3/4 of the bottle of the shampoo and pour in Nair hair remover. And you shake it all up, and then you put it back up on the shower wall. And you go the next day, you're sitting there, and somebody's saying, "Oh my God, my hair's coming out!"
Yeah. What could go wrong? Nothing could go wrong with that one at all. But
I think she looked sexy with no hair.
Well, I guess that's a reality of perception. That's for you.
Well, I think it wrecked her love life in the city of Kelso.
Well, it was a small town, so don't worry about it.
It's not actually that small, but I tell you, have you ever gave anybody a gift that you really afterwards that your conscience bothered you?
No, I never have. Now, way back when I was younger, I think I probably have regifted some stuff.
Okay, like you're on a date, so you go to the cemetery. Oh, there's some flowers. I saved $20.
Yeah, well, usually it depends. If you really like the person, you get them from the place you're going to. You pick them off somebody else's stand and you give them to them. They're a little bit fresher.
Yeah, or if they have some nice roses on the side of their house. You go clip them and then get the paper and wrap it up. Here's some roses.
Now, yeah, flowers from other people's places. You know, they look great. They pick them. But boy, if you pick them, they don't like that very well. I don't understand, Gary.
Yeah, and come on, people. Come on. There's people on chat. There's people on Apple chat right now and looking at it. Well, why don't you call? You know, you're there. The number is 716-405-0253. 716-405-0253. Tell me, did you get that gift you wanted for Christmas, like that new Jaguar? Or did you get a clunker of a gift? And what did you give somebody? And the other one is, what do you have planned for 2024 that you didn't have for 2023? Give us a call at 716-405-0253. Come on, you can call. I don't want to talk here all night by myself. Don't let me do that. I'll run out of things to talk about. And when, you mentioned depends, that's what my wife said she was going to get me for my next birthday, by the way.
But really, what's it depend on? Whether you need them, or is the finances okay, or it's a whole lot of things it depends on, I guess.
I guess it depends on the whole time, I tell you that.
Yeah, listen.
Oh, come on. We know. Look, when you're born, you get put in diapers, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of us, before we pass on, we get back into diapers again.
That's true. It's like you're going in reverse, but you're the one that's been, you turn them numbers around. Maybe there's something to this.
I don't know. But, our guest tonight, Dee, some of the things she said does make sense. I now going to manifest in my head tonight when I go to bed. I want to be a billionaire.
A billionaire of what? Of money, or a billionaire?
Well, money. If I'm going to be a billionaire, I want to manifest. But if you manifest a lot, you could end up like Trump. And really, I don't know if I want to manifest. Anytime, like, remember the bottle and the genie comes out and all that stuff, and you have these wishes, but then all of a sudden, after you got your last wish, things are always bad. Have you ever watched the Twilight Zone and any of that stuff where people had wishes, and then, bad things would happen afterwards?
It is. You're supposed to wish for more wishes, or somebody will wish for, $100 million, but they get it, but it lands on them and they're dead, so they can't spend it. There's always a catch, Gary. There's always a catch-22.
Okay, can you imagine? Okay, I wish I had love potion to give my girlfriend. And then you give this love potion to your girlfriend. I'm stealing this, by the way, from the Twilight Zone. All of a sudden, now she's madly in love with you, which before that, she didn't even like you at all. Now she's following you everywhere. You can't do anything. She's checking your cell phone. She's checking your mileage on your car. She's eavesdropping in your phone conversations. You can't go anywhere. You can't even go in the bathroom without having somebody standing there making sure you're not doing something you don't supposed to be doing. Could you imagine that love potion to get that girl that you wanted so bad? Now it's to the extreme that you're trying to find potion to get rid of her.
Oh yeah, there's always a catch-22. Just like you said, watch the Twilight Zone or any of these other shows. Even there was one, I forget maybe it was Tales from the Crypt. Maybe, they won money. What happened? Oh, they're all ready for it. They get a call. Oh, your father just died. You just inherited $20 million. But
yeah. Why isn't Kim calling in at least? Everybody's just waiting here to see if we make fools out of ourselves. Do you know that?
Well, that's a short wait. Just sit there long. And that was like Squirrel Head. Eventually, a blind squirrel gets in that one day.
Yeah. So what did you think about our guest tonight, Dee?
Oh, Dee was great. Listen, man, I've been a fan of Dee since back from all them movies, man. She's been in a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff.
259 movies and TV shows. You remember, like I mentioned, The Streets of San Francisco? Simon and Simon. She was on Simon and Simon. She was on Police Woman. Yeah. Heart to Heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mannix.
Oh, Mannix, there was a classic. Yeah, Heart to Heart was a good show. Heart to Heart was on for a lot of years.
Yeah, do you think he killed his original wife?
He's still living, you know.
I know, but, you know, again, well,
maybe like this. I did deep dives into this with some people that really were on it. There was 3 on that boat that night.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
3 famous people.
Yeah. One of them's got a famous line that he goes, your tone is all wrong. But yeah. But yeah.
Your tone. Yes, I know who you're talking about, too.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something shady about that because she was definitely afraid of water on top of all of it.
Yeah, and why would she go swimming or whatever?
Yeah, there's something fishy there for sure. Doesn't add up.
Yeah. And, you know, the Hills Have Eyes. You know, they made 3 sequels of that.
And then they did updated version. They redid it over in 2000 or something like that.
Yeah, there's one, too, where they get the mother and father get killed in the trailer. The father gets killed outside of the trailer. The mother goes into the trailer with her daughter, and then she gets killed.
Yeah. You know, they were part of it. It's kind of like Texas Chainsaw in a different area kind of thing, or Wrong Turn. It's, you know, if you go down the wrong road and you get these people that they got blue eyes, one looking that way, one looking that way, and they're asking if you want to stay for vittles, you need to keep going.
Yeah. Hey, you want to come over for dinner? Yeah. Okay. Did you take a shower today? Yeah. Oh, that makes it a lot easier.
yeah. Stay for some vittles. You need to find a way out of there fast.
Yeah. Could you imagine? I can't remember this one movie is where the guy and the girl are on this old back road, and somehow there's fog, and they drive through the fog, and they go back to an old town of, you know, going back from like about Civil War time. And everybody in this town was, because they did something bad, that they are living, but it's in the past. And what they have to do is bring people in and they eat them.
Oh my goodness. Wow, that's purgatory on steroids there. I haven't seen that one. That's a good one. I wish you could think of the name of that one.
I'll think of it. It was really good.
Yeah, sounds really good. Jeez.
Have you seen the movie Equalizer? Remember the TV show The Equalizer?
Yeah, matter of fact, part 3 is on Netflix now.
Yeah, but then the movie.
Yeah, the movie. That's what I'm talking about.
Denzel. God, that's a good movie.
Yeah, part 3 is on right, and it just came out a couple days ago. I haven't watched it yet, but yeah, those were good. He sits there so calmly, like he knows he's going to mess up 4 or 5 people, and they just think they're just going to work him over. Next thing you know, there's bodies flying, and they're laying on the floor. They should have knew better.
Yeah, and he likes drinking tea. I watched half of it today before the show. In fact, I was so engrossed into it, to be honest with you. I go, oh my God, it's going to take me 2 hours to set up the show. And I only had, we wouldn't have been on the air if I would have finished the movie.
You can always, go back and finish later, Gary, but you were so enthralled. That's what it was.
Oh, yeah. And how about the one, God, I can't think of his name. Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester.
Yeah. Oh, listen, he's been in some good ones.
Oh, yeah, that TV series.
Oh, that TV series.
Tulsa.
I love it. King of Tulsa, man, he is great in that. Listen, they're like a bunch of misfits. They get together and they work over bikers and everybody. It's classic.
Yeah, at the end of the first season, he gets arrested.
Yeah, I've been waiting for season. There's a lot of season.
Oh, he wasn't going to do season 2. Oh, we got a caller. Okay. Well, let's find out who it called. But season 2, he wasn't going to do it. He said, "It's too much work. I won't do a second season." Well, he signed, and they're doing a second season. I'll be honest with you, that's probably some of the best work he's ever done. I'm going to be honest with you. You can't. The other night, I started at right after the show, and I went to bed at 5:00 in the morning, and I watched 3/4 of the whole season. I binge watched it one right after another. Kim. Well, how are you doing?
I'm pooped.
You pooped, Val.
That's why I wasn't going to call in tonight. I'm pooped.
Well, that's better than peed.
Yeah, well, that's true. Especially if you're not in the restroom when you do it. But yeah, I've just been working all day long today. David's been carrying things in from my art studio into the house. And so I've been cleaning tabourets and going through my old oil paints. Some have leaked because they're so old. So I'm having to toss a bunch of stuff.
So you're getting motivated to get back into it.
I will be painting Sunday, so I don't have to listen to David listening to the Chiefs games.
Have you ever thought have you ever thought of when you get everything out of your studio into the house, putting a big screen into what their studio was with a nice recliner and a little refrigerator and say, there you go?
Well, actually, in the studio, I do have a television set. I have a huge armoire that has a lot of my painting things in that I'm going to leave in there. I also have a small kitchenette in there. I have a bathroom and I have a shower. So, all that's already in place, but during the wintertime, I don't want to have to walk out the studio and possibly fall and end up in the hospital. So we're dragging everything, my easels and some of my art supplies and things like that in my taboret, which my taboret was a mess. So, I have to go through each and every drawer. I have probably, 400 brushes that I have to get all cleaned up again, which that's probably going to take most of tomorrow. But I'm really excited because I have missed painting so much.
Well,
that's all I think about.
What did you get motivated? What caused you to get motivated to do that?
I think because, being retired and somewhat disabled and things like that, it's just no fun to sit around the house and watch TV and look at your phone.
Well, you don't supposed to watch TV.
I've got this talent that God gave me, and I need to use it. And that's what I'm excited to get back to it because I'm a very creative person, and my mind is always working on things like that. So, to be able to get back into it, I can't wait. I'll put it that way. I just can't wait.
Well, I guess you wouldn't want to come over and paint our new bathroom we're building, do you?
I don't like painting walls. I mean, it's okay, but it's not my thing. I can do really good straight lines.
Well, hey, Kim, did you get everything you wanted for Christmas this year, or did you get a clunker?
Well, my boys and I decided several years ago that Christmas was for us to just get together and enjoy each other's company and have a meal together. So we all decided that instead of stressing everybody out, making everybody go into debt to get gifts that they may or may not want, is kind of a waste of time, energy, where we could spend that time and energy being a family and enjoying each other. And it's really nice because it frees everyone up and it unstresses everybody. You know what I mean? Because Christmas can be a very stressful time. And then if you have credit cards or whatever and charge your Christmas, then that creates stress for months, if not years or more, because you've put it on a card. So, we just decided that was the best. And frankly, you know, most people get what they want through the year anyway. You know, if it's something you want or it's something you need, you get it. So we'd rather spend our time together as a family.
Well, I'm glad
way.
I'm glad it worked out for you because, you know, in my case, we've been saying this for the last 3-4 years, okay, since most of the kids are gone, is that, you know, let's have a good dinner. We have a great dinner for, you know, Christmas and New Year's, but we agree, right? My wife and my son and my daughter, and we agree. We're not going to go out and buy any Christmas gifts, okay? Then all of a sudden, I get this little funny thing. I go into our walk-in closet, which I don't do, and I see it's half full of packages. And I go, wow. So then I get on Amazon and I order everybody a gift. You know, and then I wrap it up, and then I just kind of put it off to the side. And, you know, here we have dinner, and I'm about ready. Wait a minute. Who's going to be Santa Claus? Well, what do you mean? I thought we agreed that, you know, after last year when we agreed we weren't going to give out any gifts, you know, and then, you know, well, then all of a sudden all these gifts come out. And then I say to myself, thank God that I found it, because this year I would not have given anybody anything. And then I would have felt crappy.
A really neat story that I used to do a lot of powwows, and I had a lot of Native American friends. And so I was at a powwow, and it was right before Christmas. And it was kind of a, you know, Christmas celebration powwow. And he was director of the Native American Center in Kansas City. It was him and his wife, and I was sitting with them. And, you know, the topic of Christmas came up, and I said, you know, are you ready for Christmas? You know, have you got everything bought? And he said, we do Christmas, we get our children Christmas. But he said, our children, when they get to acting like they expect certain things, and they expect us to buy them certain things, we set them down and we say, that's not life. Just because you expect things doesn't mean you're going to get it. So this Christmas, we're not getting you anything. And they lived by that. So I thought, after he said that, I thought that was such a valuable lesson, because we spoil our kids, we spoil ourselves to think that we have to have the best, the newest, and everything like that. But it's the simple things that we need to treasure. We need to treasure our children, our grandchildren, the simple things in life. The gifts, they're nothing. You know, you're not going to take those things with you. So, you know, I didn't mean to get so deep.
Well, yeah, I agree with you.
Valuable lesson.
It's more to be with your loved ones on Christmas and say you love them and do that the whole year through. But I tell you what, I got a whole bunch of stuff I got from last year, the year before, and the year before. Either it didn't fit, I wouldn't wear it, I'd be caught dead with it, or, you know, it's just something, you know, and all that money is wasted, you know, and
it's just stuff.
Yeah, I also, like I did with two of them, I gave them gift cards and said, go buy your own stuff, because I'm not going to buy stuff anymore, really, because from the standpoint, you never get them the right thing. And the only time they'll either wear it or that is when they know they're coming over. So they'll put it on. Just, okay, well, now, God, I can't wait to get home if I can take this crappy T-shirt off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, all this buying and selling stuff, you buy things from the store. Well, that's, you know, what they want you to do. But why put your family through the torture of going out and trying to satisfy everybody and going into debt to do it, or spend money that you could spend it better somewhere else. And I think it's just become so commercialized, and kids have become to where they expect everything much.
That started that started in the 50s. And then, let's face it, 50s, 60s, all the commercials, you had to buy, this type of thing for kids, all these toys, they're brainwashed. And so they and the parents feel guilty. So because a lot of parents, going back to my dad, born during the Depression, his mother kicked him out of the house when he was 13 years old, along with his brother, because she couldn't afford him. I mean, they grew up that way. And then they wanted, people then wanted to give their kids, and loved ones, you can't buy love. That's all I can say. Hey, our time is up, Kim. I want you to have a great one. And, let's see some of your pictures when you get them painted, okay?
Oh, I will. I'll post them on Facebook.
Okay, my friend. Say hi to David for me, will you?
Hugs, Larry. Hugs and love, Gary.
Okay, love you guys. Well, JC, so you got everything you wanted for Christmas, right?
I did, Gary. I've got everything. Can't complain. Not at all.
Yeah. Well, okay. Why don't you tell everybody who's your guest on Monday?
Oh, Monday, Nick Valente is going to be my guest. We're going to be talking about some really scary Dogman reports that he's taken from all over, not just the country, but the world now.
Oh, we got another call real quick. Let's take it before I go off. So let's take that last call, and we'll then wrap it up for tonight. Again, I think we had a great guest. If you like our guest, like I said, we're bringing celebrities on. We got a very famous country singer coming up. We have very famous country singer. You all know he owns a bar that is also haunted. Then we have, one of the cast members from Little House on the Prairie. We got guests from Happy Days coming on, Potsy, you name it. We got guests lined up. Okay, I guess we got Tom one more time. Tom, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about a book that I bought for myself for Christmas that I am thoroughly enjoying. It's one of the
It's not Playboy,
best
is it?
documented books on Atlantis that I've ever read. It was by your guest, Marc Laflamme. And he did an absolutely fabulous job of including vignettes from people like Rudolf Steiner, Madame Blavatsky, Edgar Casey. He has a huge section on him, but it was probably the most fascinating book I've ever read on that subject.
It is. And guess what came in today from Amazon? I didn't order it. He sent it to me, his book.
You're going to love it. It's a fabulous book. And I really want to applaud him for doing that because, like I said, he really, really went over every angle that you could possibly think of, including geography, convection currents, old historical maps, tribal verbal pass downs from generation to generation, and he was extremely thorough, and I really am enjoying that book. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it, but I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's a thick book, too.
Oh, it's a great book. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Tom, we're going to get out of here. I'm going to go watch the rest of The Equalizer. You need to watch that movie.
All right. Well, listen, everybody have a great weekend. Take care.
Okay, you take care. Well, JC, so you're going to be talking Dogmen on Monday, and do you know who your guest is for Tuesday? I'm not hearing you. Unmute, James.
Oh, how about
yeah, you were talking. I was watching it. By the way, he was talking up a storm, but he wasn't. He was muted.
Anyway, my guest will be Lynn Monet, and she she bought and very shortly lived in a haunted house, but she's dealt with spirits and ghosts and haunted houses and objects and all kind of stuff. You want to find out more? Tune in Tuesday.
Yeah, and also check out JC the Hitman on TikTok. He's going on locations all across Ohio, and it's really good. You can find it, JC the Hitman on TikTok. I recommend you check it out. Well, JC, you have a great weekend. Until I talk to you next week, stay out of trouble, will you?
I'll try. And if I get in trouble, just blame it on you.
Well, that's what I do with you.
I know.
Okay, to everybody out there, Tom and Kim and everybody else out there tonight, we had people on and off chat all night on YouTube and on Apple. Everybody have a good one. We'll catch you on the other side of the campground. Take care.